It has been increasingly felt that we need to focus on how the governance works and the need to reinvent public service delivery systems in India. Political science has focused largely on democratic institutions in recent years, but far less on the understanding of the basic state capacity and the absence of which often undermines democracy. Do democratic governance systems comparatively work better to ensure improved public delivery system in the long run? Do public powers in democracies necessarily match human welfare and better public outcome? These are serious questions that ought to be debated in the public domain. Democracy and good governance are separate and distinct phenomena, but worldwide empirical evidence has proved that regimes reflecting both dimensions are necessary to achieve many aspects of human security. There is no exaggeration to say that the challenges facing the Indian administrative system are as unique and as unparalleled in scale and diversity as the Indian developmental experience. And therefore, there's no harm in advertising and owning up to one's achievements and failures so far. Nothing in this record goes to make the future trajectory look wholly pessimistic or wholly optimistic. The attitude should be one of the cautions, optimism, that we should be able to overcome all that has held us back so far. We never pushed ourselves to the limits and therefore remained underachievers. So far, at least so far. Recognition of a government index, recognition of a governance index for interstate comparison should act as a precursor to a good governance, being recognized as a fundamental right of every Indian in the world's largest democracy. Friends, it's important for us to know that we believe that in our journey towards greatness as a nation, democracy has been our greatest asset. And despite huge domestic problems, our commitment to democracy remains strong. The strength of democracy lies in understanding the huge potential and the opportunities offered to solve the problems that so many Indians continue to face. Poverty, relative inequality, lack of social opportunities for the marginalized, all of these can be addressed by vigorous planning and initiation of implementable policies through good governance practices in the center and the state of India. Today, and I thank our three speakers who, despite their hectic official schedules, have taken part in the dialogue, have come to talk to our students, listen to their questions, and to present their ideas and experiences and best practices in transforming public governance in India. I congratulate the head of the department, Professor Furqan Ahmed, convener of the webinar, Professor Rumki Basu, Dr. K. Savitri, the coordinator, and other teachers and students of the political science department. I wish them all success in this dialogue between the academic community of the students and teachers and the administrative practitioners on the critical issues of public governance in India today. I thank you once again and wish you luck and good dialogue between the two. Thank you very much.
Thank you, madam. Thank you for your inaugural remarks, which really sets the tone the temper and context of the dialogue. Thank you, Madam. I will now request the head of the Department of Political Science, Professor Furkan Ahmed, to introduce the Political Science Department to our distinguished audience here today and deliver the welcome address. Professor Furkan Ahmed.
Uh, well, Good morning. Good morning to everyone. It's my pleasure and indeed an honor to welcome Professor Najma Akhtar, Honorable Vice Chancellor, Jamia Millia Islamia, who has very kindly accepted our request to give the inaugural address in today's webinar, Transforming Public Governance in India, a critical dialogue. Thank you very much, Madam, for allocating time from your busy schedule. At the outset, let me present the brief profile of our department. We are one of the oldest departments of Jamia Millia Islamia. We are biggest department in terms of number of students and number of courses offered by the department. We are the only department in Jamia Millia Islamia to offer 3 concurrent MA programs. We are also the only department to offer MA Human Rights and MA Public Administration in regular mode in Delhi. The department also offers a vibrant PhD program in all the 3 disciplines, which attracts a lot of aspiring researchers from all over the country, with at least 100 research scholars currently enrolled. Our students have been recipient of NET, JRF, SRF, and various other scholarship and fellowship. The endeavor of the department has always been to make higher education more idealistic and knowledge-bearing, but at the same time, more pragmatic and adaptable to ever-changing demands of our times. The faculty of our department has secured projects on both departmental and individual basis. The department has received institutional grants from many agencies like ICSSR, UGC, and also the proud recipient of UGC SAP DRS1 2016 to 2021. Today's webinar is basically a dialogue on public governance in India by the 3 eminent members of Indian Administrative Services, who will share their experience as practitioner of administration and what will bring about transformation of public governance in India. The challenges to good governance are many, but we also know it is the public administrators at the level of center, state, and local who have worked hard to save the citizen and the public interest in conditions and problematic terrain with an abiding sense of duty that have held the country together. Therefore, we are looking forward to hearing our 3 distinguished guests about what they believe have been transformative best practices and share some of their experiences with our younger generation. I always tell my students that positive change comes when you believe in it and actually make that happen, as Mahatma Gandhi said. I feel proud and privileged to welcome Sri V. Srinivas, Sri S.N. Tripathi, and Sri P.N. Nu for accepting our request to participate in the webinar and agreed to share their experiences as a practicing administrator to adhere the good governance in India. I extend my warm welcome to a senior police officer, Parvez Hayat, who has just joined us. I would like to give a loud cheer to my esteemed colleagues and support staff in the department for coming together towards creating a stimulating environment in myriad ways in organizing a number of webinars on various important and relevant themes, including the present one. My warm welcome to all the other participating young research scholars, academics, and administrators. We owe a sincere thanks to the CIT faculty and staff towards facilitation. technical and otherwise of the webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Furqan, for initiating the dialogue. Before the dialogue starts today, it's important to understand why such dialogues are important in any democracy, especially in the world's largest one, where public governance, ideally speaking, should be a continuing dialogue between the state and the citizen. The government makes policies for the public, which are implemented by the public administrators. And in the review process, the academic community's critical interventions are sometimes completely divorced from a grassroots perspective. It is easy to criticize policy failures, but informed criticism is difficult because there's hardly any dialogue between the policymaker, the implementer, the academic community, and the public. In a democracy, all stakeholders of policies, those who make and those who implement, and those of us who try to understand the journey of a policy from its making to its implementation and try to review the whole process, very often realize that there are information gaps which need to be redressed. All policy stakeholders need to meet more often, have more dialogues with each other in order to correctly understand each other's problems and perspectives. Today's dialogue is just one such attempt, and I have to thank our Vice Chancellor and my head of department for giving me an opportunity to present this dialogue before our eager to listen online audience today. I thank our national and international audience who have tuned in today. Now it's my solemn duty to introduce our first speaker, Shri V. Srinivas, who is the Additional Secretary to Government of India in the Ministry of Personnel, Public Grievances and Pensions, with additional charge of Director General, National Center for Good Governance, from December 2018 till date. He has served as chairman of the Board of Revenue for Rajasthan, Ajmer, and the Rajasthan Tax Board from July 2017 to December 2018. Shri V. Srinivas is an Indian Council of World Affairs Fellow for 2017 to 19 for his book, India's Relations with the International Monetary Fund, 25 Years in Perspective. His second book, Towards a New India, Governance Transformed 2014 to 19, was published in 2019 by Konarak Publishers. V. Srinivas has a master's degree in chemical engineering from College of Technology, Osmania University. He joined the Indian Administrative Service in 1989 and has 32 years of distinguished service. He has served as Joint Secretary and Deputy Secretary in Government of India and as Deputy Director, Administration, All India Institute of Medical Sciences, and Director General, National Archives of India. Further, he has served as Secretary to the Government of Rajasthan, Executive Director in the International Monetary Fund, Private Secretary to the Finance Minister of India, and Private Secretary to the External Affairs Minister. V. Srinivas has authored 162 articles and papers on public finance and public administration and delivered 63 orations. He is a policymaker, an academician, and an institution builder par excellence. When I first read V. Srinivas's new book, Towards a New India, Governance Transformed, a few months back, I was struck by its vast coverage, depth of research, and richness of personal experience, all of which were amply reflected in the book. The reader gets insights into how policies are made and executed in the world's largest democracy in a time of seminal change, brought in largely by digitization and e-governance after 2014. Today, as we all know, almost 400 direct benefit transfer schemes have been announced, which are to be operated through the Jandhan, Aadhaar, and Mobile Trinity, touching on the lives of all its citizens in some way or the other. His books depicts the stories of some of the premier central government programs such as Swachh Bharat, Ayushman Bharat, Ujjwala Yojana, and other schemes like Digital India, Skill India, and Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana. It gives us the author's experiences, interestingly, not only as a practitioner, but also as a participant observer. Because when you have to be writing a book, you need to observe even the experiments that you are conducting. It gives us the author's experiences where he was constantly reinventing himself in diverse roles as an implementer and also, as I said, as a participant observer. So, in this journey of his, which he recounts in his book, we do see the efforts that are being made to improve governance at the grassroots level, which is where implementation takes place. So, therefore, anybody familiar with the Indian rural scene would endorse much of what he has written in the book. I begin the dialogue today by posing a few questions to Sri Srinivas. Number one, what is the seminal change after 2014 in terms of restructuring central government schemes? Number two, what are the new challenges posed for 21st century civil servants in terms of some questions like the policy implementation question, the audit and targets question, the scrutiny question, the rewards question, and the change and innovation question that we teach our students in public administration. These are very important questions that any policy implementer would be understanding and should start a dialogue on public governance when he starts the dialogue. So I would now invite Shri Srinivas to make his presentation and perhaps talk on some of these questions that I posed before him. Shri Srinivas, please.
Good morning, distinguished Professor Najma Akhtarji, the Vice Chancellor of Jamia Millia Islamia University, my senior colleague, Shri S.N. Tripathi, the Director of the Indian Institute of Public Administration, Shri P.B. Nu, a very distinguished District Collector of Pattanamthitta, Kerala, Professor Furqan Ahmed, the Head of Department of Political Science, Professor Savitri, and of course, Professor Rumkiji. It's indeed a great privilege for me to speak at the national webinar on transforming public governance in India, a critical dialogue that's being organized by the Department of Political Science, Jamia Millia Islamia University. I'm grateful to Professor Rumki for organizing this event and oration on public policy at the Mizoram University, and I was quite struck by the eloquence and erudition on complex subjects of governance that she espoused. Today, she has flagged a few questions for this particular discussion: the policy implementation question, the audit and targets question, the scrutiny and rewards question, and of course, the change and innovations question. Professor Rumki wants us to discuss what are the new rights given to people, e-governance, computerization of government records, citizen charters, public service guarantee acts, and increasing judicial activism and their impact on governance. Also, the Vice Chancellor has flagged the central role of state governments in ushering in administrative reforms. I'll try to address each of these questions in the context of my own research that has been undertaken with regard to transforming public service in India in my book, Towards a New India, Governance Transformed. Let me take the policy implementation question. We often speak of a march to New India. What is the march to New India? The march to New India is about delivering public goods and services. The focus is on social sectors, health and education, social inclusion, bringing financial inclusion, electricity, housing, skill development, digital tools, and improved justice delivery systems. The objective is to ensure that development becomes a people's movement through successful implementation of priority programs, by bringing together innovations, technology, enterprise, efficient management practices. Emphasis is also placed on simplifying operations of government, speeding up decision-making processes, and elimination of deadwood. What I noticed in the course of my research work was that India's welfare state programs have undergone massive digital transformation in the past 5 years. This can be seen from 120 crore Aadhaar cards, 31.6 crore Jandhan bank accounts, and almost 100% universal coverage of the population under the Swachh Bharat mission, which symbolize the rise of New India. Technology-enabled interventions today are visible in healthcare, education, energy, next-generation financial services, e-governance, and even in improving the farmer's income. The technology enablement of India's villages can be seen from the visibility of e-mitras, digital merchants, business correspondents in almost every village. One of the most popular schemes of government that has witnessed high offtake is the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, which is a housing for all scheme. The Aadhaar-linked targeted food subsidy programs and direct benefit transfers have had a significant impact. Healthcare, with which I was closely associated for a number of years as Deputy Director at the All India Institute of Medical Sciences, has witnessed progressive policy making with the formulation of the National Health Policy 2017. The Ayushman Bharat scheme, which has emphasized a huge amount of benefits to and health coverage to below poverty line families, as also the strengthening of the All India Institute of Medical Sciences, the creation of new AIIMS-like institutions, has ensured that affordable healthcare reaches millions of Indians. The National Health Policy has also placed a huge amount of emphasis on human resources as a vital component of India's healthcare. So the number of seats at post-graduation level has increased. There's a common entrance examination, the NEET that has been introduced, and in terms of the number of medical colleges that have been notified, there's also been a significant jump. Some of the other programs that have had a huge amount of impact are the Digital India and Skill India schemes. The imprint of Digital India on public policy and governance is quite visible. In fact, I was part of one of the first Digital India projects, which was the Digital AIIMS project. And those of you who would have visited AIIMS would have noticed that it is India's first fully digital public hospital where you have unique identification numbers given for health cards and your entire health records are available online. The successful implementation of the Digital AIIMS project gave me confidence to implement the Digital Rajaswa Mandal project in the Board of Revenue, where we had digitalized 1,532 revenue codes, and it could bring data sets with regard to court hearings, judgments, trials, advocate hearings online, and provide access across 10,000 Gram Panchayat headquarters of the state. Another program that I was closely associated with was the Skill India program. And textile sector, which was one of the largest employment generation sectors, was one where I had implemented the integrated skill development scheme. A lot of trainings have happened and several existing workers have been retrained. For example, I noticed that an apparel worker in India could stitch roughly around 10 to 15 shirts in a day. And when you compare it with an apparel worker in, say, any of the advanced countries, we found that they were stitching about double the numbers. The reason was high advanced technology as also advanced skill power. Technology upgradation and skill upgradation are important for social inclusion has also witnessed significant changes both in policy and law. One of the major steps was decriminalization of homosexuality. The Chief Justice of India had famously remarked, "I am who I am, so take me as I am," in his judgment granting legal approval to homosexuality. Significant improvements using software-enabled interventions are seen in implementation of scholarship programs and social security pensions. I was also very impressed by the Accessible India campaign, wherein which for creating universal accessibility so that the Divyangjan can have access to government buildings, can have access to government websites. It was a massive change that the Accessible India campaign has sought to bring about. Further, India has contributed to in areas of yoga, culture, and sports. Our contribution to the International Yoga Day being celebrated on June 21 has been quite significant. And over 100 countries currently celebrate the International Yoga Day, in which thousands of people participate from New York to Wuxi, celebrations being witnessed in Athens, Amsterdam, Madrid, Paris, Islamabad, Kathmandu, Tel Aviv, Dublin, Kiev, Seoul, Tokyo. Across the world, you have these massive International Yoga Day celebrations. Let me turn to the second question that Professor Rimke wanted us to address: strengthening the accountability processes and the auditing processes. I joined civil service at a very young age. I was 22 when I joined the service, and governance is all what I have done. I was a student of public administration when I gave the examination, and I found when I joined the service at 22, as an institution, the civil services, particularly the All India services, had always commanded considerable respect from the people of India. And such respect emanated from a perception that decision-making would be neutral and unbiased and would enable the nation to achieve the objectives outlined in the preamble of the Constitution. I was a collector at 28, and I was a district election officer, a returning officer, and I found the tremendous amount of trust that India's population faced in the capability of civil servants was quite phenomenal. People, hundreds and hundreds of people would come seeking justice and expecting fairness in interpretation of laws. The 21st century has witnessed a significant expansion of the civil service processes and responsibilities. Recruitment has become highly competitive, and today almost 15 lakh students appear for the civil services examination. Training norms have become highly stringent, performance appraisal is very timely, and constant evaluations like 360 degrees have been introduced on the capacity of the civil servant to meet current challenges. There is greater emphasis on performance management practices and effective management of public open, transparent, accountable systems of delivery. And let me assure you that the regulatory oversight by the Central Vigilance Commission, the Comptroller and Auditor General, the Central Bureau of Investigation have increased. Clearly, accountability levels today are far higher than they were ever in the past. The C&AG is our foremost institution to conduct the audit of India. And in India's fight against corruption, he, along with the Central Vigilance Commission, play a vital part. The C&AG has adapted its own processes to the changes in India's financial governance models. Some of the big changes that have been introduced are the merger of the railways and general budgets, the merger of plan and non-plan expenditures, opening up of sectors for foreign direct investment, and of course, the introduction of the goods and services tax. The C&AG has also focused a lot on management and audit of urban and local bodies and of the need for handling large volumes of digital information from increased automation of tax returns. However, in a broader sense, the challenges that civil servants face in the 21st century are no different from what they faced in the 20th century. As Professor Najma has mentioned, commitment to the larger public good against all odds remains the foremost objective. Further, the new age competency remains anchored in integrity, building credibility, and trust in the institution of civil service. Even in a new age India, these values are foundational and non-negotiable. You can hire skills, but leadership and faith in fairness and impartiality, they cannot be outsourced. A new age India envisages civil servants as agents of change, displaying personal characteristics of high morality, courage, and independent decision-making. It also needs intrinsic motivation and an inner desire to excel to contribute to policy-making. Relentless pursuit of excellence can only be achieved with enormous amount of dedication and seriousness of purpose. There are simply no shortcuts to success. and I have seen institutions rising and falling with individuals. Let me turn to the scrutiny question. Fighting corruption is an imperative need, and preventing corruption is based on credible deterrence, strong audit, and accounting practices. There's also a need for robust oversight and monitoring, technology practices for greater transparency. We currently have a zero tolerance to corruption approach, and also with the maximum governance and minimum government approach, which has resulted in simplification of governance models. Some of these steps that were taken up include abolition of certification by government servants for submission of certificates, abolition of personal interviews for recruitments to lower posts, and weeding out of inefficient civil servants with doubtful integrity. Of course, the major causes of corruption have been documented way back from the G. Santanam Committee report, which resulted in the creation of a Central Vigilance Commission, which include administrative delays, government taking upon regulatory functions, scope for personal discretion and exercise of powers, and of course, the major one is cumbersome procedures. The Central Vigilance Commission, which celebrated the Vigilance Awareness Week from October 27 to November 2, has tried to promote transparency, objectivity, and accountability in public administration. They've also focused on process simplification, skill development, and awarding exemplary punishments. We have the newest institution for fighting corruption, that is the Lokpal, and amendments have been made to the Prevention of Corruption Act, which strengthens safeguards for whistleblowers and a crackdown on Benami transactions. Let me take you to the rewards question. And I, in the Ministry of Personnel, Public Grievances and Pensions, implement the Prime Minister's Awards for Excellence in Public Administration. And every year I come across something like 3,000 to 4,000 innovative practices that have been taken up in government. And let me share some of these outstanding practices which have been rewarded with the Prime Minister's Awards for Excellence in Public Administration. One of the models that I greatly admired was the Ambikapur model of Chhattisgarh, which is a district headquarters. It offered a green solution with a mohalla approach where women self-help groups came forward and committed themselves for garbage collection. And the Ambikapur model made people aware of the basics of municipal waste management and understand terms like dry waste, wet waste, segregation at source. And this model has been replicated in 165 towns of Chhattisgarh. In terms of education, I found two very interesting success stories. One is called the Unayan Banka, which is a reinventing education through technology, and Pade Dantewada, Likhe Dantewada, which are initiatives which have been undertaken in left-wing extremist districts, which increased attendance, average marks, and produced overall encouraging results through use of technology. In rural development, the flagship scheme, of course, was the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, and I have documented the success story of Bhagwati Prasad, who was the collector of Baswada in a tribal district which did not have any cement or any steel availability. He still managed to mobilize people to construct something like 20,000 houses in tribal financial inclusion. Let me share the success story that I have often cited in many of my orations. There was this young 17-year-old girl, Pooja Karmasaki, a resident of Jakla Bhanda village in district Nagaon of Assam. She went as a bank mitra, went from door to door to create awareness in tribal villages about the Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana scheme, the importance of savings, and motivated villagers to open bank accounts. Within 6 months, this young girl had successfully opened 1,800 bank accounts and ensured 100% financial inclusion, covering bank services, ensuring access to credit, and a lot of transparency in terms of wage labor. In terms of the skill development programs, the APEX program is called the Deen Dayal Upadhyaya Gramin Kaushal Yojana. And there was one story of Karimnagar that caught my attention. And Bharati, who's a widow with 2 daughters, had initially just undergone training in apparel sector, and she was earning a mere 2,500 rupees a month. 2 of her daughters passed the screening test in employment generation and marketing mission at Karimnagar and qualified for the English readiness and computers courses. The girls learned soft skills, behavioral skills, and professional etiquette, during their 90 days period of training. Then they got employment at the heritage retail stores at Hyderabad and started earning something like 9,500 rupees a month. The family's annual income has risen to 2.58 lakhs per annum. It's a significant jump that 90 days of training could do. Another success story that I would like to cite is the digital payment success story. In Daman, this young girl, Rekha Baigul, worked at Baswada Garments and she did not have a bank account. Her salary was paid in cash. She opened a bank account with HDFC Bank with her Aadhaar number and a reference from the company. Soon, 8,500 garment workers in Daman have opened bank accounts and digital transactions touched a monthly high of 1,75,000 by industrial workers covering 3,000 industries. Even small hawkers in Daman use digital payments like Bheem and Paytm. Clearly, Daman has switched from a cash-dependent society to a digital society. Let me turn to the last question that has been flagged today, the change and innovation question. When I joined the IAS, I was assigned to Rajasthan cadre and joined as an IAS probationer at Nagaur. A life in the Thar desert beckoned me where water was brackish, there was no electricity, sandstorms were constant, and one had to eat bajra ki roti, which was very hard diet compared to what a rice-eating boy from Andhra was used to. However, rural Rajasthan fascinated me as I conducted night halts in remote villages, slept in tehsil offices and dark bungalows with great enthusiasm. There were two areas that fascinated me. One was land reforms, and second was justice delivery systems, were areas where I was really good at as a subdivisional officer, then as a district collector, and of course, and I realized that determined implementation of public policy, constant supervision, and honest work can benefit millions of India's population. As Chairman Board of Revenue, I had the opportunity to interact with not only 30 district collectors, but over 100 young IAS officers who were working in the field. And I found that the IAS has amongst its ranks some of the brightest and forward-looking young officers. And the current pandemic has brought forth their leadership skills. Of course, we have PB Nu on this forum, and he's one of the officers who has contributed immensely to the fight against the pandemic. District collectors have stood at the front end in the battle against the coronavirus pandemic. There are numerous success stories of resilience, courage, sacrifice, and conviction that have emerged from the districts. In many ways, young officers who have stood in the front lines have shown maturity and commitment well beyond their seniority, implementing the lockdown, promoting social distancing, ensuring mobilization of village-level COVID-19 task forces, and above all, ensuring that the rural societies adapt to the new normal. Let me close my talk by citing the Honorable Prime Minister. Good governance is treating development as a mass movement in order to see that the fruits of development reach the poor and downtrodden. This is a dream that I've pursued since I was 22, and I'm glad that so much forward movement is being witnessed across the country. Let me thank Professor Rumki once again for this opportunity to address the students and faculty of Jamia Millia Islamia University, and let me also thank the distinguished panelists who will be speaking after me on these topics. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Devas, for mapping the challenges to good governance. But the takeaway for me, at least, is that radical revolutionary changes do not happen easily in democracies, but small incremental changes can also make the big difference and lead to big seminal changes, making a dent in the life of an ordinary citizen. Thank you, Shri Srinivas. There were so many things that we could discuss, but our students are waiting with their questions. Now, it's with great pleasure that I would like to introduce the second speaker of the day, Shri Surendranath Tripathi. Shri Tripathi is a 1985 batch IAS officer who is presently Director, Indian Institute of Public Administration, New Delhi, and former Secretary, Ministry of Parliamentary Affairs, Government of India. In his over 35 years of service, he has spent in various government departments like Panchayati Raj, Information Technology, MSME, Coil Board, Department of Agricultural Research and Education. He's a social media enthusiast and has traveled extensively in USA, UK, PRC Europe, Australia, and Southeast Asia, including part of Africa like Rwanda and South Africa. Tripathi ji, you're welcome to our dialogue here today. Now, I have some questions for you, as I did for Sri Srinivas, which I hope you will take up in the course of your presentation. The first question, which I did ask to both of you, what is the big change in public governance after 2014 in terms of the governmental vision, policy making, and implementation? Number two, how do you conceptualize Atmanirbhar Bharat in today's post-globalized era? And how is it different from the old import substitution policies that we had at one time? What would be your policy priorities in the post-COVID-19 era? And would you tell us about the 21st century challenges before the civil services and the civil servants? And how do you visualize, how do you look at these challenges? Shri S.N. Tripathi may make his presentation, please.
Thank you, ma'am. Let me first convey my sincere thanks and from IIPA as well on my own behalf to respected Vice Chancellor for her opening remark, to my colleague Sri Srinivas ji, which is a pleasure to listen to him. It's one feel frightened to speak after him. I also feel proud that Sri Suryanarayan Misra is listening to us, which is a doyen for us in political science. Mr. Joshi was there, Mr. Ahmad is there, actually political science, and of course, Dr. Basu, who has been helping me in IIP also in our many of intellectual endeavors. Friends, I will take a few seconds to share my presentation. I think, ma'am, there are some issues I'm not able to share, but then I will speak then.
Tripathi ji, I've heard your presentations quite often, so I think you don't need the PPT. Please go ahead.
Okay, ma'am. So, as desired by the panel, I'm supposed to be speaking on three topics, three small subjects. One is changes in Indian administrative service or Indian administration post 2014. Second could be conceptualizing Atmanirbhar Bharat and what is my take on this, whether we are really going for import substitution or we are joining the global value chain without disrupting the global supply chains, which is the new model of the Atmanirbhar. Similarly, I may make some passing comment on the other issues, what I think is relevant. First is, ma'am, what are the changes that has come in the Indian administration post 2014? It has a historical record, but if we have to start, in fact, as ICS became IAS, so the administration also got a sea change in 47 itself. We were colonial masters. Even ICS was branded as the extension of British Raj. To a large extent, we were proving them right every day that rule by law was the order of the day till 1947. In 1947, we not only got independence, we got a constitution by the we the people, where we promised ourselves, instead of rule by law, rule of law. And there was a sea change. Who was supposed to make it happen was the Indian administration. I'm not going to the political part because that is neither my concern nor the subject of the day. Otherwise, we could have talked about how democracy facilitated this process or otherwise impeded on it. So when rule by law became rule of law, the bureaucracy was needed to make it happen. Initially, here, ma'am, as we all know, that we suspected everything. We suspected East India Company, therefore we started suspecting every enterprise. We thought that every enterprise is going to be potential East India Company. Similarly, we suspected every bureaucrat. We thought that he is a representative of British Raj. So on and so forth. So our foundation of suspicion made us rule bound. Don't apply your mind, a rule will come, implement it. In fact, till 1991, if I take it as a transition of Indian administration, everything was rule bound. In fact, how much to laugh and where to laugh, even that was regulated by some legal provision here and there. When I joined Indian IAS in 1985, coming from a village in UP, studying in Allahabad, straight away landing in Orissa, where I did not know even the language, one has to still perform with the same knowledge, with the same enthusiasm, what anyone could do or anyone should do. And by that time, we have realized that in 85 and 91, within 5 years, how the system got changed. License permit Raj and my Baap Sarkar became suddenly to cooperate with the citizen. I'm moving fast because right from rule of law to rule by law, and then the 2014 system where we were supposed to reform, perform and transform, this change was not a small change. Bureaucracy is very efficient when the rules of the games are very clear. But when you apply rule of cricket in game of football, bureaucracy is the worst thing to do it. And bureaucracy has always faltered when the rules were not clear. If I take up the planning commission, what the rules were framed at that point of time, broad objectives were given, but we were waiting for guidelines. Broad guidelines were given, but we were waiting for clarification at state level. When clarification came, by that time, year 2 was there. Many states overtook Orissa, like say Rajasthan and Andhra Pradesh, who were higher, better performing. We were kept on waiting for clarification. Those days are gone. Today, Niti Aayog, or a ministry in the government of India, announces a scheme. Within 30 days, certain schemes have been implemented, which has never happened in Indian Federation. Our concept to commissioning ratio used to be 5 years. In fact, we had a plan term. Think in plan 1, implement in plan 2. That means at least minimum gap of 5 years. And in between, prepare the capacity of the bureaucracy, prepare it politically acceptable solutions, and so on and so forth. Those days are gone in 1991. If 91 is a watershed for the Indian system for liberation from the license permit Raj to rule of law in a literal sense, 2014 is another transformation in terms of speed, skill, and speed of the administration. And I tell you why and how. If we take up reform, we all know reform is essentially political. Bureaucracy itself will not reform itself because we enjoy status quo. We are trained to meet a status quo and we are trained to handle a status quo. We will not reform ourselves, even by design also. Because our personal preferences do not matter in bureaucracy. Bureaucracy is supposed to work in an orderly fashion. Bavarian faction or Max Weber, whatever we thought as a student of political science. But that does not work today, ma'am. In 47, we were supposed to herd the people. Everybody was to be kept together. This is what Sarkar says, do it. In 91, they removed the license permit Raj, but still the bureaucracy could find out how to enter, where to enter. In 2014, rules of the games were changed. We are supposed to be managing chaos today. Everywhere there is a aspirational India. You can't dictate terms. Social media has made democracy as a micro democracy. You take a decision today, implement tomorrow, pains are known to the whole world, even within 24 hours. When you manage such a volatile situation, when you manage such uncertainty, rules of the games also need to change. And bureaucracy need to appear to handle it. We all know Corona. I'm taking Corona for the sake of just putting in one example. Nobody knows what is the solution, but everybody is supposed to be managing it. Nobody knows what is the way out, but everybody is managing it. And in fact, everybody is equally suffering about it. When we all are co-sufferer, including the bureaucracy, when everybody is co-sufferer in terms of lack of clarity, how to manage such a situation. But within that also, few collectors, few doctors, few engineers took it upon themselves to go for total lockdown before it was started, go for total contact tracing before it was asked, and they went for isolation before they were told. That is what is the power of bureaucracy. We are not only trained in managing the given, we are also trained in managing chaos in case we are trusted, and that is what new thing had happened. When I say reform is essentially political, but many more reforms had happened during and after 2014. Let's take up the Prevention of Corruption Act, as my friend was saying. Now, bribe giver and bribe receiver both are now taken at par. Both need punishment, which will work as a deterrent. Otherwise, false claim of giving bribe or receiving bribe used to only corner or somebody who was treated to be corrupt, even if it is proved otherwise. So now this is a big change which has given confidence to the bureaucracy as well as a big deterrent against corruption. Same thing is true for National Recruitment Agency, which I think my friend could, for lack of time, could not tell about it. Now 20 exam, you need to, for 20 selection committee, you only appear to be one competency test. This is a huge reform. Railway was recruiting separately, banks were recruiting separately, and so on and so forth. One child search for a job has to appear in all the 20 exams throughout the year. Today he or she appears in one exam and going to be selected or rejected. Then he or she can plan for his next future beyond government job. Major reform and huge reform. Same thing is true for the Mission Karmayogi when we are going to change the nature of the bureaucrat itself. Earlier we were deciding what bureaucrats should not do. In Mission Karmayogi, DOPT has decided what a bureaucrat should be. He is not Karmayogi of Chaitanya, or he is not a Karmayogi of preaching spiritualism. He is Karmayogi that he should serve the society with an element of detachment. But not rule of law, only in the British sense, but not the rule by law in the typical colonial sense, but rule of law where equality of opportunity as well as equality of outcome, both are ensured in a calibrated manner. Therefore, this is a change which has happened post 2014. So the second thing which I would like to highlight, the entry has been, there has been shaken. The Premier Indian Administrative Service, which has taken for granted that all the posts, good or bad, all the places, good or bad, all the posts which will happen even after retirement, they belong to Indian Administrative Service. This used to be our way of dreaming Indian Administrative Service. That has created more enemies than friends. We were taken as enemy number one, even with the bureaucratic circle. Many of you will agree that we were neither enemy nor we were that bad to be envious of. Government has today allowed lateral entry. Anyone can join, even at joint secretary level. Not that it has happened for the first time. We all know Montek Singh Alwalia sir, he became Secretary of Finance. He was also lateral entrant. Many more has been given. Mr. Wahi was there earlier, Secretary Power, he was also lateral entrant. So we have experimented it earlier, but we have only experimented it at the top level. Today we are experimenting even at joint secretary level, which is the cutting edge. This is a major change because this has shaken the world. Anyone, we can hire the competency for life. Earlier we were hiring the junior babus for life. So 30-35 years was the earlier average service. Now you can be hired for government service even for 10 to 12 years of your tenure. And you can be hired at your prime of your career. So this is a big change where skill as well as expertise is given importance. But do you think that IAS or otherwise established services are threatened? My answer will be emphatic no. Because we have reduced the intake of civil services on all the sides. And that has created scope for even lateral entrant. Because India belongs to everybody, it does not belong to 5,665 IAS or 5,700 MPs and MLA, which becomes only 10,000 or total 11,000 even if you take up some people who are repeated. These 11,000 people should not be seen to be responsible for sunset to sunrise or from corona to colonialism. The bureaucracy, the state belongs to everybody, citizen, society and corporation. Each need to perform to fill up the aim, fill up the objective as our respected Vice Chancellor was saying, that we are still far away from our basic goal of removing poverty, removing illiteracy and removing hunger and perhaps providing a good quality of life to everybody. A reform bureaucracy, a reform system of administration makes a lot of sense in the current world. And that's what post 2014 has happened. Biggest change has happened is posting and transfer. Earlier, if you are posted as a deputy secretary, you need to go to 10 layers. Secretary should agree, joint secretary should agree, minister should agree, PA to the minister should also agree, and whole world should agree before you become a joint secretary. Today there is a single line. You are posted to a ministry, you join it and join immediately. There is no choice and there is no harassment either. But if you don't perform, you go back to your state. Many people have relief to go back to their state when they could not cope with the pressure and policy of it. I can tell you my own example of IAPA. When we went to digital, two of my professors resigned. They said, we cannot go digital. I am trained in 18th century and I will continue with that. I said, you have a choice. And they opted for voluntary retirement. Same thing is true for bureaucracy. We are no longer there for 33 years or 34 years. We have option, so the state has the option. This option is now open with the lateral entry. I will also tell one more thing, that there is a lot of market orientation to the bureaucracy. Following rule of law is not the only law that you need to follow. The target today is ease of business. Ease of living is the ultimate goal, not ease of business alone, ease of doing business alone. Let live and allow others to live is not the only policy of the state. The government's targets are very clear that ease of doing business must be ensured. Whatever laws, rules, acts, processes, procedures are hindrance to suspecting the business, suspecting the law, the society which is preventing its growth, must be taken out of the public domain. So ease of doing business, though it is a continuous process, but a lot of role has been played by bureaucracy. 1400 acts have been identified for deletion, and the political system has agreed to delete them. Over 100,000 instructions are there to control a business. Lot of committees have been set up to remove many of them, at least to minimize them. We can't make it free for all our typical market economy, but certainly we cannot make it control and command economy, where rule by law becomes Inspector Raj or becomes a performance of everything requires government permission. So market orientation to the bureaucracy is also another change. To sum up, reform being essentially political, PCR, NRA, Mission Karmayogi initiatives, lateral entrant, and market orientation to the bureaucracy is essentially the role played by government in reforming it. Now the term is to perform. Can bureaucracy perform in these change situations? Either perform or perish is the order of the day. If you can't, better leave it. If you can, better do it. If you can't do either, quit. Government will not wait till you get your capacity in order. Results are given, budgets are allocated, your job is to deliver. Couple of examples my earlier colleague shared, how people are not being told what to do, but they are still performing. Young girls, young boys, young collectors, they are doing outstanding work, not because of pressure. They have been free, they have been given freedom. They are now being trusted that whatever you do, while observing the rule of law, you will never be mistrusted by the state or by the society. You will not be changed, but you have to be aware of the social media change. Therefore, be rule bound, be as transparent, as partial as possible. In this area, the performance was essentially what we call it bureaucratic. Bureaucracy has responded also very clearly. Who can imagine that providing a toilet is being a program run for last 20 years? Very few programs in the world run for 20-year cycle. I can understand poverty removal running for 50 years because poverty is relative terms. Somebody can still be poorer. I will always be poorer against Ambani, but I am 100 times better off than many. Poverty could be, but why should toilet wait for it? Why should Ujjwala, a gas cylinder, wait for it? Why should a bank account wait for it? Why should a child to be taken to education should wait for centuries? Rules of the games have been changed. Reform, which was political, perform, which is bureaucratic, is also being monitored by the boss, by the system, by the establishment, and also within the time bound given. Today, if everybody has to be given a toilet, accordingly, money is also being allocated. I remember in Orissa, when we wanted to provide toilet in 600 rupees, it was nearly impossible now. And that too when oil water supply is not available. Today, government is converging all these three things to make it happen. And we became Swachh Bharat in less than 3 to 4 years. Who could imagine that a program which ran for 25 years would achieve unachievable in 3 to 4 years? It is because of push and fully funded. Push with fully endorsement of the political top. Fully funded with the political endorsement, but fully funded at the top level, bottom level, and medium level, and also capacity created. We are not only relying on bureaucracy, we are also relying on civil society in delivering things. Swachh Bharat Mission is a very clear example of associating civil society. Same thing is true in many other areas. DBT, my friend was mentioning. Earlier, once upon a time, there was debate was that if 100 rupees released by GOI, 15 rupees goes to the beneficiary, 85 rupees goes to the system. And I do believe that 85 rupees was not the corruption, neither it was meant at that point of time. But system takes 85% to administer 15 rupees medicine. Today with DBT, simply 100% goes to the beneficiary. This is a new change after post 2014. Not that banks were not there. We nationalized bank in 1969. Bank were without business and poor has no business to be in the bank. Today we have mainstreamed poor to the bank. Poor are bankable. We were saying today we made them, forced them open their account even with zero balance. This is a sea change in the bureaucratic response to opening a bank account, which could be as simple as possible. Similarly, most of the schemes have become universal. They are no longer itna Harijan, itna Adivasi, itna Muslim, itna Hindu, itna Garib, itna Dhani, itna 6 foot wala, itna 3 foot wala. All those discretions have been removed. And because of universal nature of this scheme, speed has become faster. When we want to open account, we say open 15 crore account, as many as so that cover everybody. Same thing is true for Ujjwala, same thing is for, let's say, many more schemes. When we took up road building, it was not said that MLA's bill is first, collector's bill is second, and then in-laws bill is third. It is said that go by a population of 1,000, connect them all, go to population of 500, connect them all, and so on and so forth. Rajasthan, Odisha, Tamil Nadu, Bihar, every state has done wonderful work when the clarity came. So is true for universal nature of schemes. Similar thing is true for digital delivery. We are lucky, we are fortunate that 10 years back, digital was still an aspiration. Today with 1 billion Aadhaar account, 1 billion mobile phones, 800 million people using internet, and we are the biggest data user in the world. Anything digitally is not only possible, is doable. Earlier when in 93, I was learning computer, being a student of political science. I had no very little science. So when somebody is telling you about computer, even handling a mouse used to be a big affair. Today, the Vahan, the Musaf, which was the Vahan of Ganesh, is now carrying the load of Indian system to the poor people. With a mouse click, you can get all the benefit of the state, be it state government, be it central government, be it even public sector undertaking benefits. It's a huge change of digital delivery. And last but not the least, it's time to market of schemes have been reduced. If you use the private sector analogy or a business sector analogy, when I make a product, Apple 12, it is released in all the market in 24 hours and made available in 7 days. Government of India or any state government never had this luxury. Even you write a book, you take 2 years. To go to the student, it takes 6 months. To go to the intellectual review, it takes another 1 year. And after 3rd year, you become successful. Today, those days are gone. 3 people endorsing, social media picking up, 1 billion viewers, you become celebrity overnight. So mark to market, our time to market has been reduced by this government, and government which believes in ruthless implementation. If a scheme is decided, all the corners are ironed out, you better do it, and do it fast, do it with necessary skill, do it with necessary scale. So which used to be, as I discussed earlier, on a plan period where we had 5 years to prepare, and earlier in between 91 to till 2014, we have at least 1 year or 2 years to prepare. Now the preparatory time is less than a month. I give example of Sonidhi scheme. Sonidhi was announced when we were in the lockdown. It was announced on somewhere in the June, and on 1st July, 100,000 applications were digitally collected from the street hawkers to give them 10,000 rupees loan. For few, it may be like a dream come true. But for testing the system at such a scale, where about 4,000 towns, the municipal authorities, the engineers, the municipal bodies, who were earlier chasing these hawkers not to allow them to sit, now they are chasing them to get the benefit. And the scheme was announced only 30 days. Within 35 days, about 1 lakh application, and within another 60 days, 50,000 applications. I am told by now, over 1 million applications and 500,000 cases have already been sanctioned. Who thought that this is possible? Indian bureaucracy was like an elephant who cannot dance. So the elephant is not only dancing, making Kathak and Manipuri dance together. I would end up with saying what the transformation that has happened. Because even if you reform politically, even a bureaucracy with all intention is willing to reform, the impact will be less unless we associate community, unless we development by consent, where participatory part of development was earlier missing. Either it was structural or notional or only naam ke vaste. I remember when we were supposed to consult Panchayat for acquiring a land under Pesa, it used to be a one-day affair and then everybody was suspecting. Nahi sir, Gram Sabha theek se nahi hua. Nahi sir, it was not properly done. And then suddenly a civil society institution will come. They say that collector has a vested interest. He was led by a company, this and that. In fact, my own Odisha, a big giant plant has been held up because the Gram Sabha was not held properly. Today, those days are gone. Government believes that where public participation is there, a channel has to supposed to be there. Earlier, we thought that channel is only MP, MLA, and local cell government. Digital world has opened a channel where 100, in fact, about 15 million people, which is not a small number, who interact daily with the government on MyGov platform. PM Award of Excellence, what our colleague was saying, 3,000 good cases have been identified, and they're only a fraction of it. Such a nation, a great nation, is functioning, performing, keeping itself intact, whereas our neighbors have divided themselves many times. And the exchanging between military and democracy, we have retained our democracy, and the credit goes to the bureaucracy also. I'm not saying to them alone. So transformation with participation, transformation with communication and technology tools, transformation with zero tolerance for many things, including corruption, and transformation with unstructured dialogue with the people. Earlier, people thought that if case they tell to the MLAs, the grievance is heard. Unless they tell an MP, they will never get a telephone connection. Today, you walk in the market, 3 telephone service providers will chase you the moment you say that you need a telephone connection. If you want to buy a car, only search in on the Google, 3 car companies will chase you with a car model also. So unstructured dialogue between citizen and state, citizen and community, citizen and corporations have changed the rules of the game. And all this has happened in the last 6 to 7 years. I'm not saying that earlier things were not happening. Today they are happening with the scale, with the speed, with the skill that was unprecedented, and that continues to be unprecedented. What has it impacted on the bureaucracy? Is there any impact on it? And the impact is on threefold. The impact is on people, the impact is on process, the impact is on the policies. Policies, how policies are made, we just had a passing reference. But policies, there is a theory behind public policy. If we understand, it becomes better and being better. Like Manrega, like Narega, which is very talked about, providing job in situ was the target. So that people who are taken out of farm to non-farm sector are given job locally. It was converted to many more schemes, NREP, RLEGP, this EP, that EP. Then impact was very less. A good act was passed, and then a big scheme was launched in 2004. Today, the scheme is giving result during post-corona, when people have left their houses in urban areas and gone back to the rural. Sarpanches, the collectors, everybody was ready to give them a job. Who earlier thought that? You come back and then search for a job. Today, collectors are changing. If anyone wants to work on 100 days job, please come and start working from tomorrow. This scale, this speed has come today. Same thing is true for trickle down. We thought that trickle down will give very big impact. If you read the first 5 year, second 5 year, up to 5th 5-year plan, we thought that trickle down is the best. If the size of the cake goes up, the trickle down effect will happen and poverty can be removed through that process. Today, government does not believe in trickle down. At least I'm not speaking on behalf of government, but if you analyze the policy, it looks like it believes in waterfall approach. 100% should fall on the people where it is supposed to be. So trickle down to waterfall itself is a major change. In fact, it's a watershed. Same thing is true about behavioral economic instrument being used. When we talk about Mission Karmayogi, when we talk about DBT, when we talk about the covering the uncovered, reaching the unreached, banking the unbanked, when we talk about all these things with the with the confidence, we are changing the rules of the game. Bureaucrats also need to be empowered. So is the system, which need to change the beneficiaries. Earlier, we were selecting the beneficiary. Today, everybody with universal in nature thinks rules of the games have been twisted and twisted for better. Comparative advantage of those who were nearer to the Delhi is no longer there. Anyone can excel. If Collector Banswara wants to excel in Narega, he has as much freedom as Collector Chindwala or perhaps Collector Kalahandi. Rules of the games are changed. Comparative advantage. I mean, I was doing my PhD, ma'am. Distance from power is poverty. Those who are nearer to the power, they are richer, even if they are poorer economically. Those days are gone. Today, you are comparative advantage. If you can run fast, you can start running. I always give analogy that in 100-meter race, everybody runs 100 meters, but only few get reward. But same thing is not true for governance. Governance is almost like marathon, where very few can complete and only very few will be winners. Today, this marathon has been converted into a 100-meter race. Each district is now changing its own dream. Who thought that aspirational district, who were bringing India down in IMR, MMR, education, literacy, sanitation, now they are being the focus of the government. There were some federal issues on that matter, but government aren't out. Who thought that single market will become India, GST? Who thought that government will go and decide a policy which will be implemented across the board without much question? And income tax, which were changing everybody, even the right taxpayers were changed. Now they are asked to meet them faceless, meet them on the Facebook, meet them through social media, and respond them almost 24/7. All these things happen in very few limited years, and the kudos goes to the bureaucracy which responded to it instead of revolting, instead of feeling having a feeling of that I have been asked to run when I cannot even crawl. But today the crawlers have been asked to stand, standers have been asked to run. This has happened because people have trusted the bureaucracy and people are trusting the overall the system. In fact, Corona's biggest advantage is that for the first time people have started trusting their government, then trusting their religion, trusting their science, then trusting their religion, trusting their government, then trusting their communities for survival. Rules of the games have changed. Same thing is true for resilience and participatory form of public policy. Government is changing IVC almost fortnightly. Government has announced bailout package of 20 lakh crore in 3 phases. It could have been done in 1 phase to get a political headline. But we are responding in a calibrated manner. First to the poor, second to the businessmen, third to the economic reform, which were more bringing structural reform. And our bailout is the unique in many sense because we have thought that improving the institution is more important than bailing out and doling out. Because subsidy to the poor is known as subsidy, and subsidy to the rich is known as bailout. Today, at least, we are balancing between bailout and subsidy, which is a huge change. Nobody can say that this is my claim. When DA was stopped for 3 months, nobody could say that Hamara DA ko band kiya. Everybody has to suffer. When economy is suffering from Corona, we can't say that teachers are immune or bureaucrats are immune. Only poor should suffer or Narega workers should suffer. And the nation has responded. I will not go into much into this first aspect. I will take up the second aspect, what we call it, the Atmanirbhar Bharat a little more. In the poor and vulnerable section, when government responded with them, what was the target? When Kisans were given some money, when SSG group were given some money, when workers were given some jobs and succors, the purpose was not to only lift them morally, or the role of the government in a socialistic pattern of society, what we have done in our 42 amendment in the constitution. The purpose is to show that government is empathic, have empathy for the people. When government came up with changing the definition of MSME, designed some program for government guarantee and government guarantee led bailout. The government never said that you will be given this much of money to come out to pay for the laborers. This was not a dole out, this was not a bailout, this was an Atmanirbhar Bharat. Those who wish to perform, let them be supported. Those who wish to close, let them also close. Because running an enterprise is not an eternal job of everybody. If some university cannot run a good institution, let them close down. It is not that market is good enough. Today we have 966 universities. Today we have 40,000 colleges. Today we have one IAP and many more institutions to take care of that. Once upon a time, only 5 banks were there, and Sarkari banks were only there. In fact, India had 526 banks in 47. We became 27 in 69. Today again, we have become 15 in government sector and many more in the private sector. All this is part of Atmanirbhar because institutional strengthening is one part of it. If banks are poor, nation remains poor. So banks have been recapitalized to make the India Atmanirbhar. Second thing, which is very important, the Atmanirbhar as a policy. In fact, those who are listening and perhaps changing the Honorable Prime Minister's speeches at various places, he has clarified that what is the difference between the earlier regime, let's say pre-91 and post-91 and post-2014. If you analyze pre-91, at that time, import substitution was make everything in India, irrespective of cost, irrespective of quality. And that time it was good because nothing was available. We were having needle to aircraft manufacturing ambition. How much we go, how much we achieve, it's a question to be decided by academics and maybe by the political boss also. But import substitution did not do wonders. We created huge behemoth which became a liability today. Same thing if you go for what we call it phased manufacturing, that you import first, manufacture later, localize. Maruti has to localize. This has to localize. That also did not work. Why will Mercedes localize its plant and get a bad name? Because certain plants are made in Germany and rest of the instruments are made in, let's say, Jakarta. It doesn't make sense. Same thing we tried with the what we call it the offset approach in the defense sector. If we analyze these 3 policy initiatives of the government, import substitution, ancillarization and localization as well as offset, you come to know that there was a need for a new brand of Atmanirbhar. What is the change in the new Atmanirbhar? We are not saying we will manufacture everything, irrespective of whether we are competitive or competitive. We are saying that wherever we are exporting, why not we build it here? In case a little extra cost, that cost should be met by substituting their R&D effort in the government sector, by associating academia in those areas. Same thing is true about Atmanirbhar when we are not saying we will manufacture for India. I had been to Israel for about 1.5 months at training. I asked a couple of the startups, what do you do? You say when we decide a particular, even a tea to be manufactured, we don't look at to be sold in Israel. We think that is made for global. So from day one, they have intention that their product will be global, and therefore they design like that. We design for local, ultra local, therefore it cannot become global. Today we have been persuaded to design product schemes and processes which are global in nature. Therefore this Atmanirbhar is not import substitution, designed for global, including Indian market. And third and most important part of the current Atmanirbhar, it is not saying that we will not adopt foreign technologies or foreign tools or foreign capitals. We are inviting FDI. In fact, we have got 13% more FDI than corresponding previous year during lockdown. Who could think that an Indian company will get about $30 billion US investment when everybody was sleeping in his home? Globe was locked down. In 3 deals, they got 5 billion, 6 billion, 10 billion. Who thought that Jack Ma can go for a 1 trillion worth of the public offering in the IPO, first IPO? Rules of the games have changed. If we keep on waiting. And one more thing about the Atmanirbhar, the government is giving emphasis on entrepreneurial spirit of the Indians, not on the animal spirit. There is a difference between the two. The animal spirit, which was being earlier kicked, was to how to loot the government, how to loot the banking sector, how to convert public asset into private asset. Privatization of profit and nationalization of losses used to be the strategy of at least few businessmen. Today, those things are not there. We have a very good regime of insolvency and bankruptcy. If you can't run a business, close it. equated. We can't lock the assets of the state in terms of bad loan, and then the company owners becoming rich and company becoming poor. We never had a very perfect IBC regime, but at least we are making it work. So these three aspects that we are trying to work for poor and vulnerable, we are trying to help the industry and services to unlock their entrepreneurial spirit. Instead of bailing out, we are asking them to build, to compete, and build not to destroy the national asset, but build for creative destruction, not go for only destruction. So these are the newness in the Atmanirbhar. And in Atmanirbhar, we are not saying we will subsidize. Maybe some element of PLI and credit guarantee are there, but not an outright guarantee. आपको जमीन फ्री में नौकरी देना नहीं है. All profits are yours. Like I can believe that many public sector taking have more land that they can ever use it. Today they are market oriented. You use the land as if it is a whiskey. Don't, never allow even a single drop to fall on the ground. Use it wisely. And therefore, this entrepreneurship, this market linked reform, Atmanirbhar being part of global value chain without disrupting the global supply chain, and be linked to the world, become the factory for the world, make for the world, not only make in India for India, and becoming vocal for local, all should be seen as a single policy initiative as part of Atmanirbhar India. Many people ridicule why government is saying Atmanirbhar. But why not? Everybody wants to become Atmanirbhar. A farmer should be Atmanirbhar. Entrepreneurs should be Atmanirbhar. Even university should be Atmanirbhar. As long as we'll be dependent for the grant to the government, we can't say that grant sarkar ka aur ichha hamari rahegi. It does not happen. Today, Harvard Business can set up any agenda because we have 30 billion capital. Today, our universities are as bhikhari as any other institution. I'm not blaming the Jamia Millia because you are Central University, ma'am, you might be slightly better and improved one. But there are universities which are not able to pay their salary. We can't raise the fee. Then how will improve our quality? We don't have any endowment fund. But we never thought that becoming Atmanirbhar is our job. We thought that we outsource this idea, as Srinivas was saying, that we cannot outsource accountability and responsibility. We can only outsource the initiative. So with these remarks, I would like to end my interaction here. I will be open to any question. Thank you, ma'am. I must thank Dr. Basu and Vice Chancellor, madam, for giving me a chance to speak. And I really feel happy that I'm talking to the academics. I'm not used to this talking, and Srinivas is very, very systematic in all these areas. So I have to learn the tricks of the trade from him. I mostly become emotional in making topics, but one should be rational also. Thank you very much, ma'am. Go ahead.
Thank you, Shri Tripathi. I think this is exactly what our students, keep asking me about. What exactly, ma'am, has changed after 2014? And I've never been able to give a very comprehensive answer because there are these information lags. I personally feel because we don't have these dialogues very often, and you can't only go by research reports. So there are these. There is a necessity for dialogues such as this, where our students are all there. Let me tell you, Tripathi ji, they are waiting. They are taking notes probably as to this question, which was very, very comprehensively dealt by you. Of course, there have been questions on Atmanirbhar Bharat also. These are questions actually I get from my students, and I just pass them on to you. So I'm very thankful that you really handled it as comprehensively as possible. The students are waiting for their turn, which will be after our third speaker completes his presentation. So thank you, Sri Tripathi. It's now my privilege and pleasure also to invite Sri P.B. Nu, District Collector of Pathanamthitta District in Kerala, to our dialogue today. P.B. Nu, who grew up in Kerala's Ambavur, near Ernakulam district, studied in a public school before graduating from the University of Agricultural Sciences, Bengaluru. It's a pleasure for me to introduce Sri P.B. Nu, who is from a state that makes the rest of India envious and many especially curious. Kerala is number one in the state Human Development Index, as well as #1 in the Sustainable Development Index. These are Niti Aayog figures, a double whammy of sorts. Therefore, it seemed very appropriate to me that we invite somebody from the state to talk about the Kerala model of governance, because there seems to be a Kerala model for everything. Kerala model of education, healthcare, land reform, labor laws, and of course, human development and SDGs. So I'm really happy that despite his hectic schedule, Shri P.B. Noor, who's coming to the news for all the right reasons, of course, for his work in the district during the 2018 Kerala floods, where he rescued around 14 million people to safer locations within hours. Later in the Sabarimala dispute and how he handled it with a very firm hand, and the recent corona crisis management in the state, where he devised innovative strategies for tracking patients and also put in a healthcare model in place through technology, which can help in handling this pandemic. So Kerala played a pivotal role, in fact, in corona management, because that is the state from where the first case came and the first case was reported. So, Shri Noor, I would be happy to, if you could tell us about your personal inputs to some of the best practices in your state. So now the floor is all yours. There's no one after you, so you can take your time and make your presentation. So Shri P.B. Noor, please.
Thank you so much, Professor Ramke Basu, for inviting me to this session. I am extremely delighted to be here and honestly a little scared to be here because of my senior colleagues, my respected Sri V. Srinivas sir and Sri S.N. Tripathi sir, who have talked about these topics in a wonderful manner. Now, I actually would like to extend my heartfelt thanks to Professor Najma Akhtar, Vice Chancellor, Jamia Millia Islamia University, and also Professor Furkan Ahmed for inviting me to this session. Now, just let me load my presentation.
Dr. Savitri, can you help? Is there a problem, Shrinu, in presentation? Dr. Savitri, help.
Just
no,
one second, I'm loading my presentation.
no problem. Yeah, they are about to start.
ആയിട്ടില്ല.
Can everybody share the screen, Dr. Savitri?
Yes.
I think there is a small technical issue. They will be trying to sort it out. See whether it is shown.
No, it's visible now.
Okay. It's visible? Yeah, thank you so much.
Yes, your presentation is visible. If you can make it full screen. at your end.
Yes, if you could make it full screen, because that would be helpful.
Is it okay now?
Yes, it's okay. We
Yeah,
can
thank
see
you so much.
your title slide.
Yeah, thank you so much, ma'am. Ma'am, here I will be talking to you about three topics which I have faced in the last 2 years as a district magistrate. I have joined Pathanamthitta district as a district magistrate in 2018 June, and I had no clue that I was heading for a major disaster which the district have not faced in the last 100 years. That was 2018, 18 August, the flood which Kerala has faced. Now, soon after that, in 2 months' time, we had faced another major issue, which was Shabarimala 2018 crisis. Again, after in an year time, we have faced this COVID pandemic. Now, I'll be talking about the fourth topic, which is assigned to me, the Kerala model of public governance, which I will be talking in between in these three topics, major topics, which I am going to discuss here. Now, I just would like to brief you about the district profile of my district. This is a relatively small district compared to the other district in population. We have around 1.2 million population here with a population density of around 500. And we have a forest cover of around 52%, which is very critical in dealing with the flood which we have faced in 18 and 19. We have three major rivers which is running almost parallel in the district, almost 12 dams in which 3 of them are major dams. Now, just to give you a glimpse of the events which had happened at August 14, when we were actually preparing for the Independence Day celebration. I was actually in a distant town the previous night when I got the information that there is a rumor of a serious landslide in some of the interior areas of the district. Now, it's true that this is a rainy season. It's true that we had issued a red alert in one of my major dams, and it is true that we were actually expecting a flood situation. It's true, but then we have never expected a flood of this volume in 2018 because there were no signs before or after. All these major three rivers, of which Pampa, you might have heard about, the Holy River also got flooded. 14 landslides were reported and 22 people died in that entire flood season. Now you can have a glimpse of these events which had happened during that flood. Around 600 houses have been completely damaged. Thousands and thousands of institutions, property, etc. got damaged, and people had to be shifted in lakhs of numbers. 18,000 houses were partially damaged, 615 houses were fully damaged, around 2,800 hectares of crop were lost. Now, how do we deal with this kind of a crisis? We had limited resources as usual. In any other district, we will have limited resource to address this kind of a crisis. But then we had to depend on all available resources, all possible agencies had to be called for. And among all of them, the most important which I would like to mention here is the fishermen. One of my neighbors, I don't have a coastline here in Pathanamthitta, but my neighboring districts have coastline. So we had an army of fishermen coming from neighboring districts of Kollam and Trivandrum to conduct the rescue operations. Relief activities were started in 2 months' time, in a week time, and in 2 months' time we were able to complete that relief activities. We were able to shift about 58,000 families during that rescue operation, which has completed in a week time. There were around 1.5 lakh people who were residing in around 1,700 camps. Now, when we face this kind of a challenge, there will be a lot of new issues which will be emerging. How do you feed them? How do you deal with their daily requirement? How do you deal with the sick and morbid people? How do you deal with their family, their crop, their property? So these challenges, of course, we know that these challenges emerge during a flood, but in the scale with which it hit you will definitely catch you by surprise. Community kitchen was a novel innovation in, actually it is working in Kerala already, but then it was a novel innovation which helped us to get rid of this COVID, this flood issue in a serious manner. We were able to cook proper food in the community kitchens, and we were able to supply the food to all these 1,700 camps on time. We have established collection hubs in every taluks, and we started collecting resources from general public, from different institutions, different states, and even abroad. We started collecting all this. We deployed thousands of volunteers. You could see in the picture, all of them are college and school students who had helped me in collecting these materials, distributing it to the needy persons, and making grocery kits. The government has decided to distribute a grocery kit to each and every family, in which each and every one of these kits contained around 21 different items. Now you can just imagine, when you prepare a kit of say 21 items, and total you have to prepare 58,000 kits. So what is the total number of small item packs which you have to make, and how do you distribute it, in which you don't have much idea about. Now in all these scenarios, my college students from my district and my neighboring districts were very helpful. Now we were able to, I still remember I had more than 3,000 students working for me more than a month during that flood time. And most of them were working 24/7. They were staying in the same center and working throughout. Now, when we talk about, these are all the, just a glimpse of the flood and the sheer volume of the flood which had affected us. Now, when we talk about the challenges, we know that when there is a flood, when there is a crisis like this of this volume, we will be facing a lot of issues like information dissemination, the communication, the awareness part, in the transportation part, in the resource part, etc. But the problem will be when you realize that all of a sudden you realize that you hardly have got 3 rubber beams on the fatal day morning, and you had to deploy more than 500 boats during the entire rescue operations. So how do you increase the number from just 3 rubber dinghies to 500 plus boats? You do not know where to get it. You do not know how to deploy it. You have no means to transport it. You do not know which one will fit where. And all this information asymmetry is going to haunt you. Now, how do you communicate this information? You know that at least in Kerala, almost every one of these general public will have a phone, at least one in every family. But then the problem is, like, soon after a flood of this massive scale hit you, none of this communication channel is going to work. You won't be in a position to communicate with any public, even with your officers who are supposed to coordinate the activities at taluk level. The information, you are supposed to get the information, what kind of a flood is waiting for you. Now, that information will always be missing, and awareness about how serious this is going to be and how you have to behave in this kind of a scenario. Now, these are all few local solutions which I have seen. For example, for the communication part, I have seen that among, I've told you that I have 3 major rivers. Among these 3 major rivers, all my major cities are located. Now, you know that the communication channel is cut right now. You have to establish alternate channels. You have set up a communication hotline team here with 10 dedicated numbers for communication. Now, you will be plotting all these calls which you are getting, and you will be locating it on a map saying that, okay, this particular area has got a lot of people who have got stranded. And also you will also be plotting that among all these stranded areas, some of these particular plots have got more frantic calls. That means that they are in a very serious situation. Maybe you have to divert your resources to rescue these public. Now, how do you establish a communication channel with them? You started in our headquarters. we have established a system wherein we have started taking key persons from these seriously affected locations, and we started using them as contact persons for us. For example, we will be calling them back and asking them how many boats have reached there. What do you think? What are the possible number of people who have stranded there? And how many people might have been rescued using the boats which we have sent? We will be calling them back again and saying that we have already diverted 10 boats there. How many have how many have been reaching there, and how many could you spot? So again, when we realize that 10 boats has to be diverted to a particular location, we will be diverting more than 20 boats to that location, seeing that many of them won't be in a position to reach that location because of the communication issues, because of the transportation issues, and even because some of them en route were bought by other affected districts or villages or taluks. So we were in a position to establish alternate channels. We were able to create resources, mobilize resources locally. Once the information was disseminated that we are facing a serious disaster, the first thing which we did was say on August 14th midnight, I've got this information. We have conducted our first District Disaster Management Authority meeting on 15th early morning around 5 a.m. Now, soon after the meeting, we have realized that we need to mobilize large number of boats. We had around 100 coracle rides, the round boats which use for tourism purpose. We have deployed all of them for the rescue operation in the town of Rani, where we estimated that around 5,000 people have got stranded. Now, soon after this deployment, we have realized that these coracle boats are not in a position to rescue people because the current, the speed with which water flows is really fast that the coracles may not be in a position to move. Now, we immediately had to depend on other available resources, for which we have approached our neighboring district, Kollam, and I've called my district collector, my friend, colleague, and he had started sending sea-going big fishing boats. They started catching big fishing boats. They started sending with large numbers. So initially we had no clue what kind of a boat has to be sent, what could be what has to be the average length of it, what could be the number of crew, what we do during the night, etc. But then we, when the days passed, we improved upon that, and we started even including boats with double engines so that they could cross the fast flowing big rivers. Similarly, the transportation was a serious problem. Some of these, I've told you, most of these boats were coming from Thiruvananthapuram and Kollam, two of my southern districts neighbors. Now, these roads got cut due to the flood. Some of the roads were not transportable as well. Because of this issue, we had to devise other transportation modes through which we had to take through different hill routes as well as other routes to mobilize these boats. Also, we had to factor in the time which it will take to reach the particular location. And also, there were other serious issues like some areas will be flooded. After that, there will be a land. Then again, another area will be flooded. So it won't be in a position either you can transport these boats in a truck, or the boats can move itself in water. So all these things were the challenges which we have faced. Now, the preparation part, the system memory is actually something which we have to seriously think about. Now, when we talk about 2018 flood, when I even present it before you, I have a vivid picture of 2018 flood, the seriousness with which we faced, the crisis which we have faced, and the serious level to which, though we had only 22 deaths, the serious level to which it can go. Of the 22 deaths, I'm very proud to say that there were only 6 deaths which had happened due to landslide, and the remaining deaths were not because of the flooded houses, but because of accidents after the flood. Now, this was the some of the major lessons which we have learned during the flood. The resource mobilization was a challenge. The communication was a challenge. The transportation was a challenge. Even the ubiquitous mobile phones were useless that time. Now, In almost one and a half month, 1 week, we were able to complete the rescue operation. I've told you about 1.5 lakh people were in my camps. Around 1,700 camps were set up. In a month and a half, we were able to complete the relief operation. We were able to send all of them back to their houses. And we were preparing ourselves for the next step, that is rehab work. We had a plan to complete the work of entire lost houses, almost 700 houses reconstruction, as well as the entire partially damaged house reconstruction, as well as the crop, the animal husbandry, the roads, and all other infrastructure. That is when we have got the Supreme Court order on September 2018. This Sabarimala verdict came. Now about Sabarimala. Sabarimala is one of the most important pilgrim centers in southern India. It's a hill shrine located deeply inside the Periyar Tiger Reserve. It is dedicated to Lord Ayyappa. It is estimated to be about 40 to 50 million devotees are visiting a year. An estimated 30,000 to 50,000 devotees visit a day. Now, to give you a glimpse of the background of the issue, in 1990, people have filed a petition in High Court saying that the women must be permitted to enter Sabarimala Shrine. 1991 itself, High Court has banned women entry. In 2006, a public interest litigation was filed by Young Lawyers Association, and they sought to lift the ban. In 2018 September, the verdict came, and the Supreme Court issued an order permitting women entry in Sabarimala Shrine. Now you remember that is just 1.5 months after the flood. We are still in the flood. The Supreme Court stated excluding women is unconstitutional. It violated the fundamental right to freedom of religion as per Article 25(1). Now, what were the challenges we were facing? When the verdict came, on one side, it was Honorable Supreme Court's order. It was very clear that women has to be permitted inside the Sabarimala temple. There is no age bar. The state government has taken a stand that it is legally bound to implement the Supreme Court verdict. Now, on the other side was many of these political parties, most of them have taken more or less the same stand that that should not be permitted, that the emotions and the beliefs and faiths of the religious people, the general public has to be taken into consideration. The religious group was also of the same opinion, and the general public actually was very much confused. A large number of very sincere devotees were seriously affected by this verdict. Many of these women were calling me day and night saying that, sir, we seriously do not want to enter the temple. Why do you want to destroy our temple? Now I just would like to give it in the perspective of an administrator. On one side, there is a Honorable Supreme Court order which you are legally bound to implement. The state government is also for it. On the other side, there are religious groups, political groups, and the general public. Now you are in a big dilemma. How do you implement it? Now, during this challenge, this kind of a scenario, what I think is like you have to take a call based on your clarity of thought. Now, I was certainly very clear about how I have to go about it. There were 4 aspects which I had to keep in my mind. I have to honestly try to implement the Supreme Court order. I had to genuinely try to permit all those pilgrims who want to visit the Sabarimala Shrine. There should not be any hurdle cost to them. Everybody should be able to visit Sabarimala without any hurdle, without any problem. The usual crores of people who visit must be permitted there. There are a lot of genuine public concerns raised by the general public that should also be considered. And of course, as a district magistrate, it was my utmost priority to implement a proper law and order situation to ensure Keeping all these four aspects in mind, one thing which we did, we definitely have deployed sufficient policemen there. We have taken a stand that anybody who want to, any genuine pilgrim who want to uh, uh, visit the Shabrimala temple, there should not be any law and order situation, for which a law and order situation has to be handled properly, for which we have deployed sufficient force. I had to issue 144 order during the entire season, and I was certain that the law and the 144 order issued will be challenged in the High Court. So the question before me was very clear. Why are you issuing this order? I was issuing the order to permit the genuine pilgrims who are visiting Shabrimala as a pilgrimage. Now, along with that, it was my intention to prevent any untoward incident there. There should not be any protest. There should not be any objection to it. There should not be any rally, any meeting, anything which blocks this kind of an activity. There should not be any untoward activity. Now, it was a hectic time, and we had to face all these challenges. And as an administrator, we were actually going through a very difficult situation during the Shabrimala season. Now, Jan 2019, Shabrimala season was over, and in the coming months, every month there is a monthly puja for 5 days, and we had to take care of this same issue during the monthly puja as well. But then one major issue was the Lok Sabha election 2019 was about to start, and hence the politically motivated issues were also much more during the Shabrimala season. 2019 Jan, Shabrimala shrine closed after the seasonal pujas, and March to May we had these Lok Sabha elections. After Lok Sabha election, it came the flood 2019, July to August. In September to October, we had another election called the by-election. And November to January, it was Shabrimala season 2. Now, once this Shabrimala was over again, so in the second season Shabrimala, my intention was very clear, because there were a lot of confusion, lot of doubts, and lot of issues during 2018 Shabrimala. By the time, again, the case went back to the court, and there was a, for the time being, there was a stay for the entry of women. Now, in 2019 Shabrimala season, our prime motive was to conduct a beautiful pilgrim season, so that there should not be any microscopic complaint raising from the visitors, the pilgrims, or anybody, any stakeholder. Now, soon after that Shabrimala season, it was actually very well appreciated, and we were expecting that we will have a relatively less activity time during the initial 6 months of 2020. That is when the COVID started. The first case of COVID reported in Kerala in January 30th. These were 3 cases, 3 students who have returned from China. They were quarantined in the airport itself, and there were no chance of community spread or spread in the society. Now, so in the real sense, the cases were reported from the community first time in Pathanamthitta district. That was on March 7, 2020. These were a family of 3 who have returned from Italy, and by chance we were able to detect that they have got COVID. Now, there were 3 more reported again. There were another 5 reported. Now, there were 12 total in a week time. By the time we have realized that this is a very serious issue. So soon after the initial 3 cases reported in Pathanamthitta, we started serious activities to prevent the community spread. There were a lot of activities which we have taken up, which I will be explaining in the coming slides. And by March 24th, there was nationwide lockdown declared by the state government, central government. By 7th May, our total cases, number of cases were 17. And by 7th May, all of them got cured, of which one person was 88-year-old. All of them went back home. Pathanamthitta district had 0 cases by 7th May again. But after that, the cases started steadily increasing, which has reached around 16,216 in Pathanamthitta district. This will give you a trend analysis of COVID cases in Pathanamthitta district. Now you could see these cases started 30th Jan in Kerala. In Pathanamthitta, it started on 7th March. The cases started increasing. Then it came to almost 0 by 7th May. Then it further started increasing. Now, later, the trend started declining as well. The present number of cases in Pathanamthitta district is 1,827 positive cases, of which 830 are in home isolation. So far, we have 98 deaths reported in the district. Now, initial challenges, when we look at it at the challenges perspective, there were different sets of challenges. In the initial challenges where we had no prior experience, like many of you, like the world also never had an idea about how to handle this kind of a pandemic. No prior experience which we had. The public started panicking when all this information is coming in every channel, every newspaper. Public started panicking. We were actually scared of impending local spread. We were able to trace around 1,250 primary and secondary contacts in a weekday from these 3 persons who have returned from Italy. Now, when 3 persons had a contact of 1,250, what will happen when there are, say, thousands of people who turn positive? So these kind of issues were actually a major challenge. People were isolating those who have turned positive, and there were a lot of stigma in the society. Large number of contacts in the different clusters started coming up. Now, all of you must be very familiar with these terms now. Contact tracing, isolation, quarantine, testing, treatment, etc. But then just think about March, when we had no clue about any of these steps. Even I still remember one of my MLA had asked me, what is this term called quarantine? Is it a new term which is associated to COVID? So that was the kind of information, who is a very respectable person, educated person, but then the information in the general society was very minimal. Now, the contact tracing had to be started in a massive scale. There were a lot of difficulties. Localized issues were there. A lot of new technologies, new strategies had to be adopted. We started with in-depth interview of the patient. We started with field teams for contact tracing. We started with spatio-temporal mapping, for which we have used all the available information, and we have released maps in which the places which he has visited were properly marked. These flowcharts were very useful in allowing people to contact us if there's a suspect that they were in touch with the suspected patient, the patient or the suspected primary contact. Now, we had to establish a call center for dealing with a huge inflow of information. The call centers were set up to ensure quarantine adherence. The call centers were allowed to call to every one of these 1,200 isolated persons. We were contacting them for several informations. We were asking for their medical requirement, non-medical requirement, their psychosocial, psychological condition, their symptom development, etc. And based on all this information, we were deciding whether we have to shift them to the hospital or to test them or to keep them in home quarantine. Media surveillance was another tool which we have used very effectively. New informations were coming from different districts, states, and different countries. New technologies were used. New latest informations were released by World Health Organization. They were saying that this is the distance you have to keep for a social isolation, as a social distancing. This is the kind of spread it can happen. This is how it can spread. This is how you have to use your PPE kit. So media surveillance was a very effective tool to track the international, national, and local trends, channeling ideas for policy decision and addressing public needs. Even we started using obituary pages. We were tracing the contacts of all those persons who have died of viral pneumonia and all those persons who were died due to unusual reasons. We started testing them as well. This is a sample flow chart, a spatial temporal map, which we used to release. And now you could see, this is in Malayalam though, you could see that these are the locations, date, time, which we have released so that people were able to contact us back. The media surveillance were actively watching. This was the call center which we have used for contacting the patients. Now you were talking about the Kerala model of public governance. What we were seriously thinking about, where I do not know whether some of the models which we have used in Kerala is as such replicable in other states, because some of the models which we have used here is already enrooted in the society. One is the community kitchen model, which I told you. One is the Kudumbashri model, which is working very effectively in the Gram Panchayat level. One is the large number of volunteers who have turned up. One is the very effective public health system which we have. Now, we have planned our strategy based on all the available resources in our system. For example, when our call center has tracked out of this, say, 5,000 persons who are in home quarantine, say 1,000 of them require medical assistance, say 200 of them require food assistance, for which we have devised this community kitchen. The community kitchen was directed to two different types of people. One was for the budget hotel for those who could pay, who could afford to buy a packed meal, and community kitchen for those BPL persons who cannot afford to have a meal. Now, the community kitchen will be preparing packed foods and will be distributing to all those affected persons. Now, the volunteers were used in massive numbers to trace them, to call them, to distribute the food and to distribute the medicines as well. All the medicines requirements were met with the PHCs. When our call center traced that some of these patients have got requirement of medicine, we started using we used to started spreading the information to the PHC level, and the PHC in charge will be distributing that medicine to that particular household. And then we had to start with the COVID first line treatments and COVID care centers, COVID first line treatment centers, and COVID hospitals. Now, after the initial, say, 1, 2, 3 months, the challenges were new. We had to think seriously about the new COVID management infrastructures. The human resource were a serious problem. We had a limited number of doctors and paramedics and other medical staff professionals. Now we had to think about mobilizing large number of other human resources. All of us knew that there is a serious shortage of triple layer masks, the sanitizers, the PPE kits, the face shields, and all those essentially required medical equipment, including ventilators. So we had to think about locally procuring, locally manufacturing sanitizers, triple layer masks, and PPE kits. We were not in a position to manufacture a ventilator. I still remember the total number of triple layer masks which we might have manufactured in my district will be more than 3 lakh. The total number of PPE kits which we have manufactured in my district and procured for my district is 15,000. So is the number with the face shields, the gloves, the goggles, etc. So is the case with sanitizers. Now, we stopped procuring further because we feel that that is the number which is required for the time being. If it is required more, we can procure more. The social behavioral change, communication was very important. We had to send them that the SMS has to be seriously followed. Soap, mask, social distancing is the only way to face this challenge. So the social behavior change communication was very important. Now, you can just imagine what was the scenario in the last November. Have you seen a single person who was wearing a mask in the country? No. Now you just look around. Can you see a single person who is not wearing? No. Now that behavioral change had to be fast tracked. We had to devise innovative strategies to communicate this is very, very important. This is for your betterment. This is for your well-being. Management of interstate migrants was another serious problem. In my district, we had more than 25,000 migrant laborers from different parts of the country. Now, once this disease started spreading, once they came to know that there are a large number of cases in Kerala, all of them wanted to go back to their dear ones. There were large number of people who were assembled to go back. Now, movement management was a Herculean task. Next came the reverse quarantine. I've told you about my district. It is around 1.2 million people, of which around 18%, which must be one of the highest in the country, 18% is senior citizens, 16 plus population. That comes around 2 lakh plus. Now, how do you deal with them? We know that when you see the percentage of death, almost 80%, 70 to 80% death happened in the 60 plus category. Now, I had to take care of them very well to protect them, for which we have started implementing reverse quarantine strategies effectively. Again, for that implementation part, our community kitchen, our Kudumbashri mechanism, our budget hotel, our public health system had helped us a lot. The gap were filled by the volunteers. Door-to-door delivery of medicines and food materials had helped us in a serious way. Now, scenario planning was another issue. We knew that the number of cases were increasing from 1,000 to lakhs in different countries. So we had to plan. What are you going to do with when the number is 50, when the number is 500, when it is 1,000, 5,000, 10,000? How are you going to deal with them? Where are you going to place them? You had to divide them into category A, B, C type of patients. The patients with minimum symptoms, the patients without symptoms, patients with serious symptoms as well as comorbidities. They had to be segregated. They had to be sent to different centers. There were extreme scenarios as well. 5,000 plus COVID positive cases. I've already told you, even now in November, we are into this for the last 9 months. Even now, the total number of cases at present is 1,827 today. The total number so far is the 16,000. So we have already placed a system, planned a system in which we can accommodate up to 10,000 patients on a particular day. COVID plus flood. I've told you about the flood 2018, flood 2019, but 2020 as well, we have got a flood. But 2018 flood was once in 100 type. But 2020 flood as well, it was as another challenge. The major problem was we were actually very well prepared for a flood. But how do you deal with a flood evacuation and running a camp when people have to be isolated, when people have to keep social distance, when people have to have sufficient number of masks? So we had to strategize for the COVID plus flood scenario as well. Now, in 2018, when we were hit by flood, we had to devise strategies for dealing with this massive evacuation, relief, and rehab work. Soon after, when we were hit by Shabarimala issues, we had to devise strategies for how to deal with these issues when the Honorable Supreme Court and government says one thing and the general public interest is on the other side. And in 2020, when COVID hit us, we had to devise new strategies for dealing with the crisis like a COVID pandemic. We also had to devise strategies for dealing with COVID plus scenario. Now we are planning a strategy with strategy for COVID plus election plus Shabarimala. Now, this is a combination of three. I'm pretty sure that for all those administrators in different states, different districts, everybody will have this kind of new challenges. But then how do you address these challenges is based on your experience, also available resources and available all inputs and institutions and involving the entire society. Now, when I was actually preparing for the civil service, I used to wonder, why the hell should I study the geography, history, polity, constitution, everything for civil service? Now, if you ask me, anything and everything is going to be a tool for an administrator. If you know how many chairs can be accommodated in a 100 by 100 meter hall, if you know how many kilometers a truck can cover in an hour, in a day, if you know how much quantity can be transported using so many trucks, every bit of information is going to be useful. And everybody has got enough and more tools with you. The only thing you have to do is that with the equipments you have to say you can. Thank you so much.
Thank you. This has been a very heartwarming experience for all of us. When an administrator speaks about his own experiences, this gives a lot of authenticity and credibility to our students, because they were eager to know what best practices mean. I have been plagued literally by questions from my students who wanted to know so many things for which I had no direct first-hand answer. So therefore, this dialogue was meant to be a dialogue in which our students would get to know so much more beyond books, beyond classroom teaching, wherein we have three able practitioners talking about their own experiences and how to handle them. So I'm very thankful to you, Shinu, for recounting your first-hand experiences. And my students of public administration here, please note, this is what best practices mean. This is the way you have to handle situations. And all the civil service aspirants of today, some of them could be my students, please also remember that this should be an eye-opener to you as to how to use whatever tools you may have at your command, intellectually, manually, or otherwise. You have to be using them when an emergency strikes or a situation happens for which you were not prepared. So therefore, citizen centricity is basically the bedrock of good governance. I've always been talking about that, but I will not take any more time. I will now hand over the reins to my colleague, Dr. K. Savitri, who will take the questions from the students and put it across to our three speakers, who would, I expect that they are all here to be able to answer them. So, Dr. Savitri, please carry on. I would want you to do the rest of the, take over charge from me and conduct the rest of the dialogue, which we've called today. And I personally would like to thank all my three speakers for their excellent presentations. And I do believe that this kind of dialogue is something that we would like to continue. And there's so much that I personally, my colleagues and my students have learned from all three of you today, something that cannot be substituted from theory alone. So public administration is all about theory and practice. And this has been proved by the dialogue today. So Dr. Savitri, please take charge.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. To the panelists, the questions that have been written in the chat box, I've noted them down. I'm not very sure how many of them we'll be able to take up in the short time that we have. I think we have about 15 minutes, and the panelists will have to be given some decent time to respond to those questions as well. So I begin with the question.
One small intervention. Savitri, you can take half an hour. It won't be fair. Please give them half an hour, because the students have been waiting for almost 2.5 hours with their questions.
Yes,
so
but,
let's do
but the meeting will end and we'll go offline automatically. That's a problem.
Okay. Carry on. You know best. You are in charge.
Okay, okay. I shall not take any more time in instructing about these things. Uh, Straight to the questions. The first question we have is from Professor Swarnamay Tripathi, and she has posed this question to Mr. S.N. Tripathi ji and Urganti Srinivas sir. The question is, why do we fail to solve the problem of 450 million migrants? Although we do have an Interstate Migrant Workmen's Act. So in spite of that, why do we fail to solve the problem? So this is the question that is posed to both of you. Just one little query and clarification I would like to seek from the speakers. Do you want a cluster of questions to be posed to you, or would you like to take them independently?
Cluster will be better, so that one round and over.
Okay. So this was the question by Swarnamay Tripathi to both S.N. Tripathi ji and V. Srinivas ji. Then Ayan Ali has asked really a cluster of questions to everybody. So his question to S.N. Tripathi is, what is your take on cost of doing business in India, and the question of compliances, and why is it that we have import tariffs raised during the tenure of the first India 2014 to 2019? Why is there an increase in the tariff? Then another question to S.N. Tripathi ji. You seem to have attracted a lot more number of questions by Ekta Bishnoi from Canada. She says, would you reflect on the uncertainty about the data provided by the government about COVID-19 cases in India? And then to Mr. Srinivas, another question by Mahesh. It says, these days, good governance has now become synonymous to SDGs. So what are your views on that, Srinivas ji? And then another question to Mr. V. Srinivas by Sonali Dash. What are the legal or institutional framework, or what is the legal or institutional framework available to enhance accountability in public governance? I stop here, and then we will again take the next set of questions when you have finished responding. Otherwise, there will be one too many for you to respond to.
Right.
Okay? Thank you. Over to you, Mr. Srinivas first, because you spoke first. No other preference, actually. Yes, over to Mr. Srinivas.
Okay, I thought Mr. Tripathi was going first, but I'll be happy to take a set of questions. I greatly enjoyed being part of this discussion today, and the relevance of public administration as a subject is very high. Every time I listen to Professor Basu, my thoughts go back to listening to Professor Hargopal or Professor Srinivasan from Osmania University and Hyderabad University in my student years, and the various principles with regard to Weberian bureaucracy or Simon's decision making, the hierarchy concepts, they keep coming back. I was going through the questions in the chat box, and it's always good to see young postgraduate students of public administration conducting research. And let me thank the Department of Political Science for organizing this event. Of course, I'll take up the questions. I think one of them was with regard to legal and institutional framework to enhancing accountability in public governance. I've narrated a huge number of acts that were there, Lokpal, the C&AG, there's also the Judges Accountability Act, Binami Transactions, Whistleblowers Protection Act. A huge number of constitutional and legal safeguards have been provided, and with regard to ensuring accountability. The second one that was asked was with regard to public sector reform was something that was asked, and public sector reform is something that people have been trying for a long time, especially in COVID times. We notice that a number of public sectors which are loss-making have had a huge number of challenges. And it's not a current day challenge. It's been there for some time with regard to how the quantum of stress they said, say, a public sector giant like Air India has, and how it can be handled. But without the public sector, I think the COVID could not have been fought. They stood at the front lines, be it the Hindustan Latex, HLL, or Air India, which did the Vande Bharat mission. They actually stood at the front lines of the fight. And there was one more point with regard to citizen centricity. Yes, citizen centricity is the entire bulwark of governance. I think these were the broader questions that I could see. Let me just go back to the chat and see if there are any areas that I have left out. I think was to me. National Digital Health Mission will come back at a later stage. And legal and institutional frameworks I have addressed. So I think the Atmanirbhar Bharat questions, Tripathi ji will answer those. Thank you.
Thank you, Srinivas.
Yes. Over to you, Tripathi ji.
Yeah, okay, ma'am. The question that has been put to me are rather very simple ones. One, the ease of doing business, the data about the COVID, and the other related question. Let me first answer it out first. The last one, the data about slow release of data. We know slow release. We have nothing to hide. Today, the government is very transparent. The number of tests, which was used to be 1,000 a day, has become almost 1 million a day. So this is the achievement of a government, and why it will hide that? Two, if recovery rates are improving, this will still the confidence of the people and corona warriors. Why should government hide it? And in fact, the best of the best government like US, UK, Canada, and anyone, nobody could hide this because this is a pandemic. Even the originator of it, which if they wanted to hide it, they could not. So they have to claim the royalty for it, but fact remains that corona could not be hidden. So that is one thing government of India is neither hiding, nor there should be an impression even from local or abroad. Because this is a public health emergency, nothing can be hidden. Even if you try to hide, it will have worse repercussion. In fact, Kerala and Orissa started celebrating early as if they have won over corona, and they paid a bigger price for it in due course. I'm not here to criticize any government or state or administration, because these are learning things. That's how we learn. You must have seen how Mr. Noor, when he was presenting my district, I mean, हम बोलते नहीं IAS में कि we change our gotra and become part of a particular cadre. Like marriage, the women change their gotra and go to another family, adopt the entire culture in situ. Same thing is true for my service, and I feel proud. Nobody said that from where you came. He was always saying my district, my people, my city. That is what makes Indian bureaucracy best of the breed today also. Second question was regarding cost of doing business. I think that's a very relevant question. Ease of living depends upon ease of doing business, and ease of doing business depends upon three factors: the establishment of a business, running of a business, and closing of business. Whereas what we call it life cycle of a business. That's where all the three costs are there. First cost for establishing a business, the government has been able to eliminate a lot of delays. Consent to operate clause has been removed. You can buy land anywhere. You can set up your industry, convert the land into industrial and commercial in due course, and many more relaxation has happened. And many laws have been changed in that area. So cost of establishing a business or a small enterprise to a large extent has been reduced. Yes, we are an over-legislated country. We had the hangover of Quit India movement, and where everything has to be suspected, and every entrepreneur was suspected unless he was proving otherwise. So all the laws, let's say I give you an example of this automobile sector. We have 115 Act and about 3,816 compliances if you want to become a dealer or a manufacturer of a car or become mechanic also. But all those laws require about 156 return to be given by entrepreneur. And all these have a cost. In fact, I am part of a committee set up by Ministry of MSME to suggest ways and means for ease of doing business. But ease of doing business, we have done considerable reduction. But still much more to go. It's like malnutrition. You take vitamin today, that does not make you fully nourished. It requires a little longer time. So is true for ease of doing business. But cost of doing business is slightly complicated. Cost of doing business is cost of compliance is only one part, like harassment of inspector, a police inspector, or for that purpose, a labor inspector or a revenue inspector, or there are 51 inspectors, anyone can harass you. But that is a manageable cost. Still, I believe that if you talk any industrialist, it's a cost of corruption is manageable. It is the cost of compliance which is unmanageable. You send a compliance, nobody received it, nobody acknowledges it. So cost of compliance is being reduced so that all those things are becoming easier, like digital interface. Why we say that first handshake with government servant is not very eventful thing. You don't remember it, you like to forget it. आप यूपी में है किसी थाने में जाओ एडजस्ट से लौट के बाहर नहीं आ सकते because unless the police inspector does not harass you, you are not a citizen and he is not an officer of that area. So these things are changing. What we call it behavioral change is required. Another cost of business is the major cost is the credit cost. We are a still very high cost economy. Cost of electricity per unit is much more in comparison to China, US, or Korea. Cost of credit here is still bank deposit gets a 6 to 7% of return. Of course, the pensioners, that the way I am, I require 10% return. But 10% return, which bank will give? And then business also, when the cost of deposit is 7 to 8%, cost of lending cannot be less than 8 or 9% because cost of managing a bank also has to be factored in. Cost of failure has to be factored in. So cost of credit is pretty high, which the government can do precious little unless the whole economic structure changes. Same thing is true for cost of raw material. You see how much has happened when coal was being allocated or mines were allocated on a preferential basis. People made money on paper. Today, the whole civil society, Supreme Court, everybody said, so these are common resources, they should be auctioned. When they were given on royalty basis, the cost was X. When you are putting it on auction and you are paying upfront, the cost will certainly go up. And you say cost goes up, then it will add to mudrasfiti, this and that. All those, the naysayers will start dominating the debate of political discourse. So it's a very tightrope walking when you want to reduce the cost of business. And third question to me was that regarding this, I don't know, I mean, I've forgotten it. Savitri ji, kindly remind me if I remember correctly. Regarding this, I have left it somewhere. Let me check it up from the chat box so that you don't need to repeat it. Yeah, this GST related or something like that. Is it okay? Now you must, ma'am, unmute yourself first, then tell us.
Your mic is.
Sorry. I didn't want the echo to interrupt your answers. How do we reform GST regime given the recent conflict between center and state over dispersal of GST funds?
There was a question relating to Atmanirbhar also, that when we are raising tariff, how does it go in? Is it not protectionism? I mean, that was the meaning perhaps. It is not protectionism because today the war in 21st century will not be fought on natural resources, which used to be the case in the colonial era of 18th century or 19th century based on new technology of production. Today, the trade and technology will dominate the discourse. When capital and labor movement is free across the globe, the trade and technology monopolies will decide who will control and who will serve. Today, you see how China is being grounded because of technology comes still from the US and other developed countries. So, according to me, in next 50 years, there will be country of technology experts and there will be country of producer. The rest of us will be consumer. And that's what the circular economy or experiential economy, where Srinivas and others have a lot of expertise they could have sharing in the next session. See, today you don't need to own a Mercedes to ride on a Mercedes. You can just hire it as long as you can afford to pay the rentals. Same thing is true for this also, the tariff barrier. When government has decided to put tariff, we have decided tariff not blindly. Where there is capacity to manufacture in India and people are dumping their goods by under invoicing, such goods, such things need to be protected. Like I give you a question of, some of you might have a doubt that why TV and other such white goods have been put a higher tariff. There are 112 mobile manufacturers, in fact 121 to be precise, mobile manufacturers in India. Mobile requires a screen. A screen can be enlarged. They can manufacture TV sets. They can manufacture any such gadgets which are white goods. When such capacity is there within the domain of India, within the geographical territory, why some companies are still dumping their high cost but highly subsidized goods to only kill the Indian market? In such cases, high tariff and calibrated tariff is a good idea. It is part of Atmanirbhar initiative. Where you can, you should do. Where you can't, you better buy technology through either copying it like China, or building it like the way we did in Pokhran, or we building it and competing and collaborating in the areas where we become Atmanirbhar. So Atmanirbhar is a dynamic concept than being treated as a one-shot affair or change the narrative by one or two incidents. It's a wholesome approach, what I call it, nourishing a malnourished child. The rest about the, let me tackle about the GST related. In GST, there were 17 types of tax raised by three layers of government: state government, central government, and interstate, both the governments and all the three governments. So 17 into 3 matrix, how many return a entrepreneur was supposed to file, and how many inspector one has to fail, how many rates and calculation he has to do. Now all those 17 has become one. Of course, for calculation purpose, there is still 3: GST, SGST, and IGST, but they are more mechanical than need to be applied mind for. What is the problem today is that people don't want to become formal. Upari and niche wala, acha and kacha and pakka wala, all these things are becoming part of being exposed when there is single GST. Who opposed most GST? Do you know? Not the traders, but sales tax inspector. In fact, certain services oppose. So, if GST ho jayega, to mera kya hoga? So GST is another animal which has emerged in the Indian situation. In fact, as a student of political science, I call GST as an innovation of India. It's federal innovation, where a state has surrendered their taxing power to a third party agency, where all the finance minister, including Government of India finance minister, are part to it. GST Council is the fourth layer of our federation, which is functioning very efficiently. In fact, we all know as a student of political, no taxation without representation. But taxation is being decided by the GST Council. Without permission of GST Council, any state or center cannot change the rules of the game. Because that's how GST will become successful. So GST should be seen as an attempt of one nation, one tax, one nation, one desire, one nation, one aspiration, as a part of greater India. In fact, I would be too happy in case there becomes one such GST for education, there such become one such council for health, and maybe there should become one such council even for public services. This will be a India of 21st century, where things are streamlined. Because if you have 30 gates, you need 30 chowkidars. You can't say that I will not pay for chowkidar, but I will still have 30 gates. So unless you remove the gates, you can't remove the chowkidars also. And each chowkidar is paid to harass us only. Today we are having a new type of harassment. People are harassing in the similar income group. Like you take up this COVID crisis, my friend was telling. In fact, the maids were harassed not by the owner, but by chowkidars. They did not allow them to enter unless they were convinced that they are good. And they were convinced with very, very little incentives. Even muskura ke bol diya, to bhi log convinced ho gaye. I mean, we have very low value corruption, very low cost corruption. All these things have eliminated by streamlining things, and it becomes a matter of right. And I think I have tried to answer as much as I could, and maybe my other colleagues will take up the rest of it. Maybe second round also. Thank you, ma'am.
Yes. There's one more question to Mr. B. Srinivas from Chitrapuramya. She is a doctoral student at the University of Hyderabad. Now, her question is that with most of the states introducing the Right to Service Guarantee Acts, how do you think the governance scenario changes in the post-COVID age with digital transactions becoming the norm? This is the kind of question that is posed by her to you. Over to you, Sir Srinivasji.
Yes, the entire thrust of my talk was with regard to how technology revolution has swept India, and that is what I've tried to focus on, and the impact of technology that has brought in massive changes to the citizens. And you look at any program, be it Digital India, Skill India, you name it, and the National Digital Health Mission. The technology revolution has swept India in recent years, and Aadhaar has been one of the founding stones on which the entire revolution is based. The second aspect of it is, of course, technology has been widely accepted by India's rural communities. So you go to any village today, and I traveled about 8,000 kilometers of Rajasthan, and what I found was the e-mitras, digital merchants, business correspondents, and every individual having a Jandan account. This was the kind of response that one could see, and there were common service centers being prevalent, and each of these number of online services. So today, if you just go online and download an app, Umang, you will have something like access to 500 odd services. And you look at any state government's online portals, and you can look at the integrated portal of Kerala government, or you look at the Maharashtra government or Orissa government, you'll find something like 500 to 600 services are being provided online. The services are duly monitored, and there are fines and penalties in case that particular service is not provided on time. So there has been a massive digital transformation across Indian societies that is visible, and that has resulted in a huge change and improvement in the service delivery systems. Also, there has been a digitalization of public grievances. So in case your service is not delivered, then the citizen always has the opportunity to go and file a public grievance on the subject, and then answers are far more forthcoming. I hope I answered it.
Is Mr. PB Nu online? There's one question for him. I can't see his video. Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Nu, there are two questions. Actually, one of them by Vijay Verma has been asked in Hindi. So I'll just summarize that question in English for everyone. And his question is, do you think that there is either lack of or there is inadequate research on the prediction of the threat of floods, which is part of the problem in Kerala? Or is it that non-use of available cautionary notices issued by the government from time to time? What is the source of the problem? This is the first question. And the second question is by Ayan Ali, who says that what are your views on a nationwide lockdown versus lockdown that is restricted to containment zone alone? Which one do you think you would prefer, or which one is better in terms of administrative challenges and the execution of it? Yes, these are the two questions to you. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, ma'am. Now, the first question is by Vijay Verma, and it talks about the lack of information or use of warnings on time. Now, I can tell you from my experience in about the 2020 flood, which we were actually expecting, and we were like 100% ready to face it. Now, even then, the dams has got a capacity. My most important dam is Kaki Dam, for which the water storage capacity which we can operate using the shutters is hardly 6 meters, ma'am. That means almost brim, up to brim it will be filled by the time the blue alert is issued. Now, once blue alert is issued, it's hardly, if it is a heavy rainy day, it's hardly half day or maximum 1 day to come into the next orange and red alerts. And maybe in a daytime, you will have to release water for sure. Now, the problem will be like, already, when are you going to release the water? It's not when the water is filled up to the brim. It's when it is already filled and it's raining continually, and you predict that the rain is going to continue, and there is no way to hold the water further. That's when you release the water. But then parallelly, there will be a problem. The entire rivers will be full by then. The entire forest and land will be already saturated. Now, what I'm trying to tell you is, it's not about the information dissemination. It's not about the lack of information. It's not about the lack of technology or use of technology. It's about probably about the climate change, or it's probably about the way things are emerging in recent days. Now, I can tell you again from my personal experience that I've told you, so what do you think what I was doing on August 14th when the flood was hitting us on that midnight? I was 100% confident about the current scenario when I went for, taking my dress for the next Independence Day celebration. It's not that I was not aware. It's not that I didn't have the information. It's that I was very comfortable with the information, and I was certain that we are in a position to manage. But the volume of water came through the rain was so heavy that we were not in a position to manage. That's my take on the first question. Second was about whether it is nationwide lockdown or imposing lockdown only in containment zones. I think I have answered this question during my presentation. Just think this scenario when the last November, there were not even a single person who were using a mask. Now there is not a single person who is not using a mask. What do you think how we have acquired that kind of an information dissemination in such a short span of time? How we were able to educate people of the country whom we are not able to educate for the last so many decades. We were able to communicate this information so fast, saying that this is so crucial, this is so important. Now, that information dissemination had happened when we declared a complete lockdown, which was unprecedented in the country on March 24, 2020. Similarly, that seriousness of the situation, we were able to communicate. Everybody, including us, the administrators, including every educated person, we were able to communicate that this is an unprecedented situation. And what I personally feel is the national lockdown was the best solution which we had.
Okay, I think that is all the time for questions. Even if there are one or two questions that have remained unanswered, we cannot do much about it because of the paucity of time. And I was also supposed to sum up the entire dialogue. I don't think there is enough time. We have just got 4 minutes, and I have to propose vote of thanks as well. So I'll just make 2 quick points about my take on this dialogue and what do I understand from this dialogue. That the 3 distinguished prominent civil servants, prominent not just because of their experience and age, but also because of the way they have handled situations, has made up for that lack of age. I mean, I'm addressing the younger civil servant, Mr. Nu. So all 3 distinguished prominent civil servants, therefore, they have combined their experiential knowledge as well as perspectives on public policy by punctuating their presentation with some encouraging success stories as well, as Mr. Srinivas and others did. And they have done their presentations with a lot of aplomb, and I really thank them for that. Now, because these success stories, when you mention them in the course of your presentation, it's also, it instills in me or in us a sense of hope as well as optimism about the ability of the public policy makers and the executioners to address the challenges and probably bring about change in the new age India. So together, the 3 speakers I felt have spoken about various flagship programs. Srinivasji was talking, mainly accented on flagship programs and schemes in health sector by mentioning about aims-like institutions being established in different places besides Delhi, where it already exists, and the Ayushman Bharat scheme. And Mr. Tripathi spoke about Atmanirbharta, and there were people who were a little critical about that Atmanirbharta. Sir, ek comment ye tha aapke liye. There was one comment which said that if everyone has to be Atmanirbhar, why not extend this to the government and bureaucracy as well? They also need to be Atmanirbhar. So that was a kind of sideline comment that was there. And then he also spoke about the Karma Yogi scheme, and Mr. Nu spoke about Kutumbashri scheme and how it has been helpful in a way. It was able to fill in the gaps in post-flood and COVID situations or crisis in the state. So these were there. One good point I thought Mr. Srinivas made was on the relevance of some of the most abiding values and virtues. And he said that these remain non-negotiable. That kind of insistence and perseverance insofar as following those values and virtues are concerned by the bureaucracy, I think those are ones that will also give us, the academics, a lot of hope about the possibility of a bureaucracy that arrives in its most efficient avatar in the new age India. So all in all, the three panelists have given us ample fodder to critically and analytically review the efficacy of various programs and the administration's role in it, because this is the primary purpose, to my mind, this is the primary purpose and responsibility of the academics. We are not there on the ground zero, as Rumki mentioned about Mr. Nu or you, but our purpose is to look at it more critically. We have the ability to have or to position ourselves with equal amount of attachment and detachment as academics, you know. So to my mind, this is helpful. It also continues to give fillip to our abiding interest and contribute to our continued relevance as academics. By way of vote of thanks, I would like to begin by thanking our Vice Chancellor, Professor Najma Akhtar. She's also a professor, for her introductory or inaugural remarks. But more than that, I was really struck by the fact that she stayed online for most of the dialogue, or most of the duration of the dialogue. I'm sure she's very busy, but she still stayed. That shows how much she was interested and how interesting the dialogue itself was and how relevant and topical it was. I'm also thankful to the three panelists without whom this dialogue could not have taken place. Three of you remain critical to our understanding and our appreciation of the way in which the administration has functioned, and would like to take it forward with a different kind of schemes and different kind of challenges and different kind of vision that has set in this particular decade, and also challenges, of course, remain. So thank you very much for taking time out. It's a Saturday. Still, I know all the three of you are very busy, and you came here and you made your presentations, sometimes minus the PPT, sometimes with PPT. So thank you so much for handling that so well. And all the three of you really handled it with aplomb, and I'm very grateful to you for your time. I'm also thankful to Professor Furqan Ahmed, who sits there with so much patience and allows us to carry forward with whatever we had planned without any, kind of interruption. And he just stayed there and allowed us to move forward. So thank you so much. And to Rumki, who put it all together. I'm only coordinating it at a very minor level. It was Rumki who is the sutradhar, so to say, of the panel and critical dialogue that she conceptualized and decided to pose questions. I would have been so happy to take a recap of all the questions she posed. I wrote them down, but we just don't have the time. But those were very interesting questions, and that was probably her input as a critical academic for this particular dialogue. So thank you, Rumki, for that. Thank you, Furqan, for being with us. And I wish to thank all our departmental colleagues and professors from across universities, Swarnamay Tripathi from Orissa, and Professor Nisarul Haq, and Adnan Faruqi, and Dr. Bulbul Dhar James, and Mr. Muslim Khan, Farhanaz. They are all our colleagues in the Department of Political Science. All of them on a Saturday. Some of them do have classes, but they took time out to be here. And all the participants who asked lovely questions, that we could actually carry this dialogue in a real way, that it became a dialogue because of the questions and the answers. So thank you everyone, the participants and the panelists and the departmental colleagues, and of course, last but not the least, the Vice Chancellor. So thank you all. I'm Kadlur Savitri. I would like to sign off with this. And I also formally declare that the dialogue comes to a close. So you may please exit the meeting. We hope to stay in touch with all of you and try and bring you again to Jamia, most possibly and hopefully in offline mode as well. That would be so very interesting. So thank you all. Bye-bye. Yeah, I sign off.
Thank you, ma'am, sir.
Welcome.